Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands, dust off your broomsticks, and join us as we unlock the treasures behind Chamber of Secrets, Dumbledore's Big Plan.
Oh man, it's a special episode.
That's right. We are in between books right now. So as ever, we are breaking down how Dumbledore's big plan applied to the book we just finished, and today we'll be talking about Chamber of Secrets.
I know, yeah, this is gonna be really fun because it's like it's really interesting. Like, this is like one of the theories that has almost become like a fundamental part of how, at the very least, you and I interpret this story.
Yeah, it feels like there's so much evidence for it existing that it is part of the story.
Yeah.
Which is to say, I don't even know if it's necessarily a theory as much, maybe calling it a theory encapsulates it all into its own sort of sidebar thing.
Sure.
But it's whether or not you think Dumbledore intended Harry to go through the obstacles, or he set up the obstacles and Harry just did them.
In year one.
In year one. That's sort of the delineation there. And then it's in what things is Dumbledore doing to prepare Harry versus in a purposeful way versus in a reactionary way.
Right. Which I think is the thing that I like about Dumbledore's big plan is that oftentimes the story will contain elements where you're like, surely Dumbledore wouldn't permit this to happen. Surely he wouldn't hire Lockhart or Umbridge knowing they're going to be the kinds of teachers that they're going to be, and yet he does. And so it's interesting, but then very often, when we're going through and really dissecting the story the way that we do, it can sometimes feel like, well, if you add this interpretation to the lens, it's no, those things do make sense because they are contributing to who Harry ultimately becomes. And because Dumbledore is so often described as this omniscient sort of character that does seem to have his finger on the pulse for just about everything going on inside of the castle or out, it's just, you're okay, maybe he is pulling strings. Maybe Dumbledore does have a plan because he as a singular person knows the full contents of the prophecy.
That's really what it comes down to. So really, it's without a doubt he's pulling some strings. So I think the fun part of Dumbledore's big plan is figuring out which strings is he pulling and which strings is he reacting to. What did he have a hand in? And what did he not? Because you're right, he's presented as this all-knowing character sometimes, and it's how could he know? And it's well, but he knew that, so maybe he could have known this. And it's where are the lines between what he did know and what he affected and what just happened?
So I think that's a great jumping off point too, as we dive into Chamber of Secrets, sort of if we want to almost, you, the listener at home, have just watched us conclude Chamber, but if we want to give a little bit of a refresher from Sorcerer's Stone without going through all of the nitty-gritty details of it, I think one of the most vital details is where Dumbledore will be picking up in Chamber of Secrets, whereas where he was starting in the first installment in the series with Sorcerer's Stone, Philosopher's Stone, because after the attack on the Potters, the wizarding world has gone into a state, in their mind, of celebration, of peace times,
right?
The downfall of what has otherwise been this massively dangerous and oppressive force that has existed and caused danger to their everyday lives, and people are excited to go back to normal. But Dumbledore, in a small handful of it seems like Hagrid as well is sort of dialed in, Hagrid has that line in The Leaky Cauldron where he's Codswallop, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Think he's out there biding his time. And of course Hagrid is right, and the reason probably Hagrid has this take, I have to assume, is in part due to his closeness to Dumbledore.
Right.
Who also, I think, knows that like the night of the attack on the Potters and Harry's victory, over Voldemort inside of that moment is not the end all be all. Like
right, like it's not that this isn't the end because again, Dumbledore knows the prophecy.
Right. So I think because Dumbledore also knows that Harry is protected while he's at the Dursleys, I think it's probably not difficult for him to surmise that going into Harry's first year, exiting the safety that he has through the protective enchantments at that household, that like almost certainly is going to be the catalyst for Voldemort's return, and he is correct. So even going into like Harry's introduction to that world on day 1, on his birthday, when Hagrid comes and collects him, is the day that the Philosopher's Stone has already gone into motion from the hands of Nicholas Flamel to the vault at Gringotts.
I guess it's been in the vault for a while, presumably.
That's like one of those things, I guess. Do we ever officially know?
I guess we don't know how long it's been there.
Okay.
We know that Flamel used to keep it at his home.
Right, at least through Crimes of Grindelwald.
Right, yeah.
Like
that was a while ago.
We can physically see it in his home in Crimes of Grindelwald. But that to me states like, on the offset, Dumbledore is like, okay, the most obvious, the easiest way for him to come back is going to be via this singular magical artifact, the Philosopher's Stone. And so it's like Dumbledore knows what needs protecting, and he's taking actions to do that, and he knows that Harry's arrival at school is going to be the start. And so it's kind of like, and he must presume...
But he makes sure that Harry is there for it being removed.
He is, yes, he is aware of that. So like Harry is able to start to get like some of the breadcrumbs to like piece together like the greater narrative of what's going to be at stake. But from there, it almost does seem like all of the, obstacle courses that he goes through, like they're all perfectly fit to each of Harry's respective friends. So it does seem like in a lot of ways, like, everything Dumbledore has laid out for him going into this first year is with the intention of letting Harry face down whatever remains of Voldemort. Like the Philosopher's Stone is the fishing lure. Voldemort is the fish. And like it bites right where Dumbledore thinks it's going to.
Yes.
And so he's able to, permit Harry the opportunity to take that chance, to give it his go. And Harry himself recognizes this particular fact.
Yeah.
So then with that groundwork laid, coming into Chamber of Secrets, now is when maybe like a little bit more of like the mystery could be involved. Because if Dumbledore knew the Philosopher's Stone is where Voldemort would go first and when he would go first, it put Dumbledore in a really prime position to steer the ship.
Right.
But now going into Chamber of Secrets, it's like, now we're not sure what he would target next or how he could target it next. And to be fair, I guess on some level, Voldemort himself is not even necessarily involved in Lucius Malfoy's decision to plant the diary.
Yeah, he is the antagonist at the end of the day, but not by design.
Not by design.
Right. And so it's like what you have to think about going into this year is like what Dumbledore did not intend for the Chamber of Secrets to be opened. Like he wasn't like, okay, this is going to be a tricky year because the chamber is likely to be opened this year, and so I'll have to work Harry's education in defeating Voldemort into that. Like, he has no idea any of that's going to happen.
Correct.
So, like, going into the year, though, it's not that he doesn't have plans for Harry. Like, he does have things he wants Harry to learn by the end of the year.
Yes, and he has clearly taken obvious steps before even the start.
Pretty obvious steps.
Pretty obvious.
Pretty
steps
obvious, yeah.
Before even the start of the school year to enact those particular plans. So the basilisk, the chamber, those are wrenches in his plans.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean the plans.
He has to react to those, but he does. He does well.
He does do well.
He has I was kind of going back to our notes. There are 3 big things Dumbledore is trying to get Harry to learn during his second year at Hogwarts. Number 1, and this one we've touched on a lot throughout our reading of the book, is just keeping Harry's ego in check.
Yes.
Right. That's number 1. Number 2 is to teach him Expelliarmus.
Yep.
And number 3 is to test Harry's loyalty to Dumbledore himself, to make sure that Harry Potter is loyal to Dumbledore personally more than anybody else.
Right. Yep. And that obviously comes through in such massive fashion. We can get into that. Well, let's start with Harry's ego in check, because I know that we have talked about this aspect of it, especially through the lens of the hiring of Gilderoy Lockhart in particular. So Lockhart in so many ways represents everything that is wrong with letting your ego go to your head.
Yes.
And I think that like Dumbledore could easily look at Harry and say, okay, you have entered into the wizarding world pre-famous.
Right.
You have then become a Quidditch star almost immediately. Defeated a house troll in rather spectacular fashion, and then once again faced down Voldemort and beat him.
And protected the Sorcerer's Stone.
And then also won the House Cup for Gryffindor, all inside of his first year. So like there is like distinct possibility, especially if Dumbledore himself also taught James Potter.
Right, because that's the thing. It's like, not only does Harry already have all that going for him, Dumbledore's know James and knew that James, and Sirius for that matter, were very arrogant people.
They were. I mean, they were very talented.
They were. They could back it up.
They could back it up with a lot of skill. But like, it really, like the James and Sirius trajectory is probably not the version of Harry. Like, Harry has some of that inside of him, surely, like, but like Harry is much more down to earth. He has a lot more of like Lily's, like friendliness and everything else.
Compassion and stuff. And
yeah.
But so what's fun about this one is that like you could say like, so he hires Lockhart to make sure Harry doesn't get a big head. And it's like, hey, Lockhart is this like big bumbling buffoon hilarious character that enters in here, but like what's fun and like the deep part of this one is like why Dumbledore knows this is such a dangerous path for Harry, and it's because of Dumbledore's own mistakes.
Yes,
at like the same almost the same point in his life. Right, because Dumbledore came into the school or I guess somewhat maybe even infamous because of his own dad. Behavior.
Dumbledore basically enters the school, and I believe the attack on Ariana has already happened.
Yes,
and he's gone to Azkaban for it.
Because Percival is in Azkaban. Yes,
right,
and that's like right before Dumbledore gets to school.
Yes, so basically Albus enters and is like could be a little bit of an outcast just based on reputation alone.
Yes.
But he basically quickly blows past whatever preconceived notions people had about him just due to sheer talent, skill, and ability in the magical realm.
Yes. So Dumbledore, then just becomes extremely well-known and talented and famous of his own accord whilst at Hogwarts.
Right.
But and then
winning every award
to the school. Probably playing Quidditch.
Almost certainly
because it is literally a century before Harry gets there, and that would be the youngest player in a century.
Yes. That's another one of those. It's just like it just feels like headcanon.
It's just there.
He definitely played Quidditch.
Right.
Yeah.
He did. If someone did it, Dumbledore did everything. If he won everything the school had to offer, that includes the Quidditch World Cup.
There you go.
The Quidditch World Cup. The Quidditch Cup.
The Quidditch Cup, yeah.
The Quidditch Cup. So there you go, Dumbledore, the seeker from a century before. But then he's got like such a big head on him that he goes, and when he meets Grindelwald, he's just like, yes, you and me, we can take over the world. We can lead the wizards out of hiding. We can do all these terrible things, and we can justify them because we're brilliant and smarter than everyone else.
Yes.
And look how great we are.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore, clearly that's a bad thing, and it leads to a huge conflict.
Yes.
That is almost ends in Grindelwald winning and taking over the world, which would have been bad. But so Dumbledore knows firsthand how bad it is, like the ramifications of being like even just the slightest bit arrogant.
Right.
And he like makes it his mission to make sure that Harry never feels arrogant about anything ever.
Yes.
That he will be modest and humble no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think like you're exactly right. Like, I mean, Dumbledore's the one who like falls victim to it, but then Dumbledore also, because I think that like inside of Chamber of Secrets, there's a really big thing that's unfolding, which is like drawing a lot of the parallels between this like kind of unknown character of Tom Riddle, who's like the dark-haired, handsome, talented orphan boy,
right,
who is like finding his way through Hogwarts. And you even have the scene like where you go into like Riddle's diary and you see the conversation between Dumbledore and Tom Riddle, and basically Dumbledore asking him like, is there anything else you think you need to tell me? And Tom Riddle like is like, no, sir. And then like later on in Chamber of Secrets, Harry himself is before Dumbledore, and is having a conversation, and he says, you know, like, is there anything else you would like to tell me? He said gently, anything at all. And Harry responds, no, there isn't anything, Professor. And so it's like, you know, this is another one where it's like those parallels. I mean, Harry can speak to snakes. You know, it's like he could be the second coming of Tom Riddle. I mean, of course, everything he's done before now certainly doesn't point in that particular direction.
It is what's really funny, but this is more of our third point where Dumbledore's trying to like make sure Harry is loyal to him. But like that scene right there is a great example of how Harry, at least at this point, isn't like he definitely respects Dumbledore and knows him to be the most powerful wizard, but doesn't have 100% loyalty to him no matter what, because here's Dumbledore asking him a question point blank and Harry is openly lying to him.
You're right. That's
about an important thing, which is so interesting, this scene in particular, because Tom Riddle shows him this scene in order to win Harry's trust in the end.
Yes.
And Dumbledore recognizes after reliving that scene with Tom Riddle and Harry that Harry does not fully trust him yet.
Right.
And so like what's funny is that what Tom Riddle does is he frames Hagrid, and what Dumbledore does to win Harry's trust back to himself is prove that Hagrid was framed.
Hagrid is really like the fulcrum.
He really is.
That trust like pivots. Yeah, which is kind of wild. So, so I think that's definitely like one of like the really really big things. But like, you know, I think that this exposure to a character like Lockhart, an exposure to a young Tom Riddle that Harry might be able to relate to more, and then Dumbledore's guidance coming from his own personal experiences, you know, as like a young boy who was talented and popular and arrogant. It's like it's all informing Dumbledore in a very obvious way, like which way to shuffle Harry. So.
Exactly. And if you need like proof that Dumbledore hires Lockhart to like for this purpose, like at the end of the book, the line is dear me, said Dumbledore, shaking his head, his long silver mustache quivering, impaled upon your own sword, Gilderoy, which is just that proof that that Dumbledore has known about Lockhart's lies the entire time.
Yes,
so
I mean,
which is proof that he openly hires a fraud.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, not only does he hire a fraud, but Dumbledore actually knows the trick that he's pulling.
Yes.
You know, like he's like, you're using memory charms to take stories from great wizards, which kind of makes sense, because my suspicion is that out there in the real world, these people who are accomplishing great things almost seem like the type of people that are quieter and have more humility themselves about these accomplishments, but could potentially be running in more of the same circles with Dumbledore. So Dumbledore may have like heard the story more like, you know, amongst colleagues.
Oh, that would have been such an interesting twist if like any of the people that Lockhart stole memories from were like ex-order members or something.
Oh. It stands to reason.
I know, because they're all like these fantastic Defense Against the Dark Arts stories.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, I mean, they seem like people that Dumbledore would run in circles with.
Right. Oh my gosh. Dude, that's got to be something.
Got to be.
Okay, we got to figure out, because he mentions like 2 or 3 like some physical descriptions of them.
Okay.
Yeah. But like, man, who is in the order but then isn't in the order, but like we know isn't confirmed dead?
There's so you got the order, and then you've also got the, like, again, going back to the Fantastic Beasts canon, if we want to count it, is the it's almost like there's the Second Order of the Phoenix, which is what we witnessed during Harry's time. There's the First Order of the Phoenix, which is what James and Lily are a part of, and Sirius and all that. And then there's like what precedes that,
right?
Which is like the order that includes Nicholas Flamel and, oh goodness gracious, teacher from Ilvermorny,
Lily.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, her.
What is her name?
Chicory is that? Why is that coming to my head? Is that not right at all?
No, Madam Pickery is
Madam Pickery.
president.
Okay, you're right. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, well, apologies for not knowing that information off the top of our head. But the point is that Dumbledore seems to have a legion of like-minded, highly talented, defense against the dark arts wizards who he is communicating with during the era of Grindelwald's reign.
Yeah.
So, whoever these people are who are achieving these great feats.
Eulalie Hicks.
Yeah. There we go. Wow,
Yes.
I was definitely going for the Madame Pickery.
Yep. As portrayed by Jessica Williams.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good times. Yeah. So, but it could be people who may have been member of like that particular behind the scenes group of people.
Yeah.
Because that book is emblazoned as well with a phoenix.
Yeah. You're right.
So
So he's got if this isn't the Order of the Phoenix, it's the Association of the Phoenix or whatever.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Like what comes before the order.
Right.
Yeah.
So it would. Yeah, that could definitely be how Dumbledore knows, is that like one of the people Lockhart stole memories from, one of his victims, was Dumbledore's friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, because otherwise, how else would Dumbledore know how Gilderoy is pulling these things off? Like
Right.
That to me stands to be the most likely reason, is that Dumbledore just knows the actual people who did it.
Right. Yes. Gosh, what is it? What is it with werewolves? Walking with werewolves? Nope, man. Feeling dumb.
I know.
Here we go. Because Dumbledore already would have some sympathy towards werewolves because he hires Lupin the next year, and he's known about him for a long time.
Right. Wanderings
with werewolves. Right?
Hang on. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So Lockhart's books, just to give us like some jumping off points if anything stands out. We have Break with a Banshee, Gadding with Ghouls, Holiday with Hags, Travels with Trolls, Voyages with Vampires, Wanderings with Werewolves, Year with the Yeti.
Wanderings with Werewolves seems like the one that stands out as the one where Dumbledore would maybe have more of a connection.
It does seem
because
that way.
He seems to I think like when Fenrir is up, he mentions is like, oh, I might not have as much of a bad time as if Fenrir was here or something, who likes to play with his food first or something, or and then he knows Lupin.
And it's Dumbledore who is the one who, like, when Lupin is aiming to go to school, Dumbledore is the one who makes the accommodations to make that possible.
Right.
So clearly Dumbledore has inroads with, the werewolf population.
Yeah.
In some
capacity.
capacity.
I think we've even talked about this. I think he's the one who allows like the werewolf cubs into the forest, right?
Oh man, I think you had that additional reading.
Yeah, that was a thing too. So okay. We're gonna have to look more into Wanderings with Werewolves. This feels ripe for a theory. Like, did Lockhart steal someone's? Yeah, like an order member who was the original Wanderer with Werewolf.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because the rest of those, I don't know. There's no mention of like Yetis otherwise.
Not really.
Not
no.
really.
I think we see like the one vampire at Slughorn's party.
The ghouls in the attic and stuff like that. Banshee, not really a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like a Bogart form at some point. Yeah, okay, that one stands out the most. Or I guess Travels with Trolls. That could be.
Yeah, that could be it. That'd be another one. I mean, Dumbledore knows where the trolls are to send Hagrid.
Well, this is giants.
Oh my goodness gracious, man. Okay. Backtrack.
Yeah. It would be fun. What would have been a great one is if the Travels of Trolls one was stolen from like Quirrell or something.
Oh my god!
But Quirrell's already dead.
Yeah. That would be a good one.
That'd be a really funny one.
It does seem like that's like one of those areas where it's like Quirrell does have one skill, and it is with trolls.
And it is trolls.
Yeah.
So that'd be funny.
That would be really funny.
But oh well, I guess not. Unless he just doesn't remember. Unless he did steal it, and then Quirrell is just like, yeah, whatever.
That actually does make sense, because I don't think that Lockhart's memory charm is usually meant to do what it does to himself.
Yeah, for sure. That doesn't like make like a mindless person.
Right.
That could be interesting. That like Quirrell just finds himself with the talent with trolls, but doesn't remember
why
he's good with them.
That tracks actually, because we know from additional reading on Pottermore that Quirrell was out exploring the world, attempting to make a name for himself, and then he ultimately stumbles into or across paths.
That would be such a funny connection if
Quirrell's the real hero.
Quirrell is the Travel with Trolls hero.
I don't hate it,
dude. I don't hate it. That's okay. We're going to have to look into that. That sounds not impossible. Not impossible.
Okay. Moving on though. So our next key point to examine into is going to be going into year 2. Dumbledore has hired Lockhart, which we all know just means it's going to be subjecting the students to essentially a education-free year of Defense Against the Dark Arts because he's just a moron. But there is something important to teach Harry, which is Expelliarmus.
Expelliarmus. This is the other big... So that's the thing. It seems like Dumbledore is like, okay, so we're going to have to... We'll use Lockhart for this, but also Defense Against the Dark Arts is important. Specifically, one main spell I need to make sure Harry knows.
Yes.
And that is the disarming spell. And the sort of proof is that Snape agrees to be the assistant in the dueling club.
Yeah.
To Lockhart.
To Lockhart. I mean, I have, I think, narrowed in on the belief that I think that Snape is one of the best, if not the best, duelists in the series.
Absolutely.
I think that he is massively, extraordinarily talented in this particular regard. He seems to have like the concept of wandless magic down in a way that is just completely effortless. He can block all of Harry's spells without even like blinking an eye.
Yeah.
Like, so I think the biggest thing that Snape is up against in any situation where he is dueling, even against McGonagall in the end, is that like Snape is not actually against McGonagall. Like he does not want to.
Right, he's not trying to hurt her.
Yes, precisely. So it's like even in that particular duel where she like blasts him through the window, as cool as it is to see McGonagall on full display.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, who I would also bet, is not someone you want to go toe to toe with. But I also think like you're not watching Snape in full bore in that capacity.
Right,
So, yeah.
like because he's still just trying to like defend himself because he needs to tell Harry about the memories. Like
Yes.
that's all he's trying to do that whole night, and it's like, I just can't get to him. I mean, he's like so close. And there's like this is a cool movie thing. If you like slow it down during the McGonagall Snape duel, is when she's shooting spells at him, he deflects the first two and sends one at both of the Carrows and knocks them out behind
I love
them.
that.
It's
I
like
love
it's like
that.
you never see it happening. I don't think it happens in the book, but that's a great movie inclusion where it's like Snape does that on purpose.
Right.
Yeah,
But
like-
even that would suggest, like, we don't take movies as canon, but if you want to, it's like that would display like his sheer level of control over the situation.
Like
It's
his awareness is through the roof.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Like he knows who's in the room, where they are, and where to send the spells. So,
Right.
yeah. So, So the point is that like Snape could easily be the instructor. Like he would be a great Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher if not for all of the other stuff swirling around.
Right.
Like he could teach them. So yeah, Snape agrees to go in to be Lockhart's assistant, which almost certainly is Dumbledore saying, Snape, we need you to go do this because Harry needs to learn Expelliarmus, because Expelliarmus is exactly the correct spell for Harry.
Yeah.
For one, it does go on to be his signature spell, so much so that it is actually said out loud in the story by Lupin. Like Harry using Expelliarmus on Stan Shunpike in the Battle of the Seven Potters is what tips off all of the Death Eaters that that's the real Harry, because he used Harry's signature.
Because no one else would do that.
Right. And then even in the end, in the final duel with Voldemort uses Avada Kedavra and Harry uses Expelliarmus.
Yes. Like it's the spell. And it's like, it is great because it is like simultaneously offensive and defensive.
Yes.
And it like ends fights pretty much immediately.
Yes.
Without anybody getting hurt, which all is also in the name of maintaining Harry's ego. It's like it maintains the modesty.
It
it's
does.
like these are not big flashy wins. You just don't have a wand and I'm not going to hurt you more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is all really good. Let's see. Plus, the other thing is that looking way ahead is that Dumbledore recognizes the value of having a fully intact soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which, if your signature spell, if the spell you go to the most is Expelliarmus, then you're just going to end the fight quickly and never kill anybody.
Right.
Which is so important.
That is going to be very important
Yeah.
because like I think that's like one of the big things that Dumbledore, especially even on like the Lightning Struck Tower with Draco, it's like Dumbledore's key priority when it comes to Draco's assignment to kill him is to basically protect Draco, who again is trying to kill him, soul.
Yeah.
Because if Draco does commit murder, in that particular location, then he will never be the same ever again.
Right.
Then Draco will go down a path that he just can't necessarily return from.
Right.
And so it's like, this is something that Dumbledore places a huge amount of stock in. And so this being the spell that Harry goes to, that like, he consistently leans on, and being the one key defense against the dark arts lesson that he has throughout the year, it certainly ends up being a resoundingly important one.
It does. This also, you can see it pay off like pretty quickly too. Like even as early as the next book, where Harry has sort of internalized this mentality and stops Lupin and Sirius from killing Pettigrew.
Yes.
Which is like a form of mercy. It's just like, nope, don't kill him. Don't kill him. That's not, we shouldn't become murderers.
Right.
There's that. In Order of the Phoenix, Voldemort goes to try and possess Harry, and he cannot do it because, as Dumbledore says, Lord Voldemort's soul is maimed, and as it is, cannot bear close contact with a soul like Harry's. So it's just like, he can't even touch Harry,
right,
because
right.
of this problem.
Because Harry is so pure. But if Harry is less pure, then maybe there's a greater possibility. Like Harry is like so far the exact opposite of Voldemort that it actively prevents Voldemort from being able to possess him.
Right. So despite Gilderoy Lockhart and his bumbling ways, Dumbledore makes sure that Harry takes away this one key spell in year 2. And that's what he's like planning on, I think, ahead of time. So I'm not sure how they would have, like the dueling club forms as a result of the attacks happening at the school, but I feel like one way or another, he would have found a way for Lockhart or Snape or someone to teach him Expelliarmus.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, this is, again, it kind of goes back to the thought, like, where Dumbledore may not know, like, again, compared to Sorcerer's Stone, like, he may know that Voldemort is going to go after the stone in particular. Like, that is the lure that will draw him to a known location. And it could be the case that coming into this year, Dumbledore doesn't know how Voldemort will most likely strike again, but he might know at some point in time I will be able to conveniently package this lesson in some way. And I mean, that's me asserting some belief outward into Dumbledore, like, surely Voldemort's not going to stop, but also worst case scenario, it's a wizard school just having an extracurricular activity where there's no other major attacks. It's just dueling club. Like,
oh yeah, just starting dueling club at all.
Right. It doesn't seem unreasonable.
Right. I mean, he could have just, like, yes, if Lockhart hadn't, suggested the idea, Dumbledore could have been like, Flitwick, we're going to be having dueling club. You'll be hosting that. Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Or, I mean, heck, far outshot. Dumbledore could just be like, Gilderoy, I'd like you to teach this class.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't know if you can do it, but
give it a whirly pop.
Give it a whirly pop. Exactly.
There
exactly.
Okay, so then we zero in on kind of the big one, I would say, which is the loyalty aspect.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, one of the big things that sort of teased this one up is, it really is that conversation between Tom Riddle and Dumbledore, and then that same conversation mirrored by Dumbledore and Harry.
Yeah.
Where it's very clear that, like, and Harry does, like, for plot-based purposes, it's hard to argue with a world where it's like, if Harry is ever comfortable to go to an adult and just ask them for help, then it usually would solve the plot a lot faster.
Yeah.
But I still think you can interpret it the other way, which is to say that, like, Harry doesn't trust Dumbledore enough to let him know everything.
Right, that he's hearing the voices in the walls.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something where Dumbledore, who is a legilimens, it's not just enough for Dumbledore to know what Harry's thinking. Like, he needs the allegiance. He needs Harry to trust him, because at some point in time, Harry might have to go to extraordinary lengths, and that's going to require following a meticulously placed together plan.
Right, and it's like, and especially like, what happens in Deathly Hallows is like Dumbledore's dead, and then all this bad information comes out about him, and Harry is like seriously wondering, like, why on earth am I listening to Dumbledore?
Right.
He pointed me at nothing, and now what do I do?
Right.
And, in the end, he does trust him, and it's fine. But it's like, for Dumbledore, this is of vital importance because he, one, is the only one who knows the prophecy.
Right.
So he knows that his agenda will not be interrupted or swayed by anything other than kill Voldemort or defeat Voldemort.
Right.
Whereas, and he's also then able to foresee outside forces wanting to win Harry's allegiance, presumably even under the same name of defeating Voldemort.
Right.
But like no other source can possibly know the truth of the situation like Dumbledore does.
Yeah, and I mean, because you're right, like, because inevitably the Ministry is going to want to come to Harry and say, like, Harry, you're the one who's going to have to defeat it. Like, will you be on our side? And that is what happens. Like,
yes,
the Ministry does come to him, but like Dumbledore has basically devoted his whole entire life to this particular mission. Like, nobody's going to be as vetted as Dumbledore is and as prepared as Dumbledore is to ultimately take on Voldemort, because I mean, this is like what they're up against for all of book 5, which is that Fudge is just, he's unwilling to see reason. So it's like all the time he could be gathering intel or information or putting together a plan. Like all of that during like action time is what needs to be done. Like you need to be laying groundwork for your defense against this inevitable attack that is mounting rather quickly, and Fudge is doing nothing.
He's doing nothing.
Yeah.
Doing nothing. And what is it? Let's see. Scrimgeour, I think, ultimately ends up saying it best. So year 5, Fudge is gone, and he's trying to win Harry over, and he says, well, it's clear to me that he's done a very good job on you, said Scrimgeour. Dumbledore's man through and through, aren't you, Potter? And he says, yeah, I am. Glad we straightened that out. Boom. Poof, take that.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's it, though. That moment happens because of like the work Dumbledore puts in, like back in like Chamber of Secrets.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because so the big one, it's like, this is one, it's like, you don't know necessarily the Dumbledore plan to like, how am I going to make sure Dumbledore or Harry only trusts me? But it's like, this at some point needs to be part of his plan. And he pounces on the opportunity to like really reinforce this lesson.
Yeah, he does. So the setup for it is going to be after Harry has seen inside of Tom Riddle's diary, and they're going down to Hagrid's hut to basically be like, yo, Hagrid, what the heck? How come you never told us this story before? Mm-hmm. And in the process of doing so, Hagrid is being arrested and brought to Azkaban by Fudge and Lucius Malfoy. And then, Dumbledore is also in attendance for this particular conversation. And whilst in there is this kind of like moment in the hut where like nobody else knows that Harry and Ron are hiding underneath the invisibility cloak over in the corner. But Dumbledore clearly is able to read the room.
Right. He knows somehow that Harry and Ron are there.
Yes. He can discover it. So the big line that he says is basically like the oh gosh, where is it? I thought we had it written down here.
That I will never really be gone. As long as those here are loyal to me.
Yes, you have it.
Right. That's the line. I'm trying to find it word for word.
Okay, so the line is going to be, however, said Dumbledore, speaking very slowly and clearly so that none of them could miss a word, you will find that I will only truly have left this school when none here are loyal to me. You will also always find that help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. Mm-hmm. And so that's like the big setup for it, where I think that basically Dumbledore is saying to the room, like, if you need help, show me loyalty. And, it's like one of those things that it's sort of like very cryptic for just about every single person inside of that hut.
Yes.
Whether their presence is known or not. It's like one of those where I think Fudge is just like, what is going on?
Yeah, like, who are you talking to?
Right, yes. Which it would be hilarious to be just like a fly on the wall for that particular situation, because I can just imagine Fudge being like, what?
Yeah. Okay.
But the big thing is that then like when Harry does find himself inside of the Chamber of Secrets and, Tom Riddle is saying like Dumbledore has been like, pushed from the castle by the mere memory of me. And, Harry, retorts with like, no way.
Yeah. No, he'll never really be gone. Not as long as those who remain who are still loyal to him.
Yes, and then that is what ultimately summons Fawkes
to him. Yeah.
Right, which is good, like positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, see, there we go. And then when Dumbledore's talking to him after the fact, he says, "You must have shown me great loyalty down there to summon Fawkes to you." And it's like, see. Loyalty to me comes with help. I will be there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even like when. Like then Dumbledore quickly has to show like the two-way trust there, because he's like, he's got the diary Horcrux, and Harry's like, can I give that back to Mr. Malfoy? And if I was Dumbledore, I'd be like, I'd really like to look at this a little closer.
You mean this incredibly important historical dark magical artifact?
Yeah.
You just want to take it before I've had time to look at it?
Yep. But instead, Harry, he's like, yeah, of course, go ahead and do it. And then Dobby gets set free, and that, has its own It's like Dumbledore just very much trusts that, like, just let Harry do his thing. Things are going to work out.
I know.
It's going to be a good thing.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's kind of another like little interesting one that you touched on just there, because this is like one of those things that you and I discussed before we came down to record, and it's the sentiment of Dobby. Because
I know. I remember when we were first writing the script, it was like, is Dumbledore controlling Dobby at all in this book?
Right, because Dobby is doing something rather extraordinary, for his race, which is like, or species, what would be the right term there?
I think both works.
Okay,
yeah.
Both works.
Yeah.
What Dobby is doing is rather extraordinary, because house elves do not have the ability to override the commands of their masters. So and this is on proud display by, if anybody, Harry himself, when Creature shows up at the Dursleys' house and is basically just screaming like, won't.
Yeah.
And, Dumbledore is like, Harry, give him a command and see if he has to listen to you. And Harry's like, Creature, shut up. And Creature can't speak. So it's like,
right.
It's like one of those things where it's like Creature doesn't want to follow Harry's commands.
Right.
He is magically
bound by the commands.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, what Dobby is doing, going against, the desires of the Malfoys, is he is weaving through the loopholes.
Yeah, he's just loopholing. Yeah.
In order to successfully do it.
Right, which you also see Creature doing.
Right.
Where it's just like, like Sirius says, get out. And he's like, okay, I guess that means I can leave the house. Creature knows, that's not what Sirius means. And he knows that Sirius would not want him to go do these things. But Sirius didn't say that. And he did say get out. So he provides an opening.
Yeah. So I almost imagine it like a lock, kind of like as you're turning the knob and you're waiting for the click.
Yep.
It's almost like what Creature was waiting for was that moment. It's and the thing is that if you're kind to these members of your household, then they won't have the desire to look for the loopholes. To look for the loopholes. But it seems like their own inner workings and logic are able to find where and when they occur. But the interesting thing about it as it pertains to Dumbledore's big plan is that by the end of the story, it is incredible. I mean, just like with the Lockhart situation where he's hoisted upon your own sword, Dumbledore knows when he's talking to Lucius, he's basically saying it sure would have been inconvenient for Arthur Weasley's Muggle Protection Act if it turned out that his own daughter was attacking Muggleborns inside of the school. And he's like, wouldn't that be bad, Lucius?
Wink.
So it's another one of those omniscient moments for Dumbledore where he definitely has a complete grasp on what Lucius was doing.
Right.
He understands his plan. He knows, and he says, it would be bad if any more of Tom Riddle's old things found their way into the castle.
Right.
He's like, I know you planted it.
Right.
And then that's where Lucius is like, you can't prove it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't matter because I know, okay?
Yeah.
I'm who you need to worry about. And
right.
So it's like, it doesn't matter if the rest of the world knows. I know.
Right, yeah.
So I know where you stand, Lucius. So the big question there, though, when it pertains to Dobby, is Dobby from the very beginning of the story is clearly in the know. He knows that Lucius is planning to plant the diary. So the question would be, if Dumbledore in the end knows that it was Lucius who did this, would Dumbledore have known from the beginning to be working with Dobby in order to try to, air quotes, protect Harry Potter by way of not allowing him return to school? And I think that as much as I desperately love the idea of Dumbledore and Dobby being in cahoots with one another,
right.
I think that this actually speaks even more to the force of good that Dumbledore knows exists out there in the world in the capacity of things like house elves.
Right.
Because this is almost something that Dumbledore outlines to Harry in King's Cross Station. I think it's of love, fairy tales, and house elves. Voldemort knows not.
Right.
These are things he sees so beneath him that he can't understand him. But what Dumbledore knows is that these forces for good that are out there are acting of their own accord. They are acting against
right
the forces of evil.
Yeah, he has like another sentiment too about like, tyrants everywhere. Do you have any idea how much tyrants everywhere fear the people they oppress, that like they know that like one day someone among them must rise up to like challenge them or whatever?
Yes.
And it's like he is trusting that is happening out there. It's like if the Malfoys are being these, tyrant buttheads to, people in general, someone is going to oppose them.
Yes.
And it's like, he's right. It's Dobby.
It's Dobby, yeah. And it's amazingly Dobby. Like, it's part of what I love so much about him as a character, is that he is like going, at great personal risk to try to protect Harry, who is capable of dismantling the very thing that his own, masters like are aiming to achieve.
Yeah.
Because Dobby values what is good and what is right. And so it's just So Dobby, I don't think is part of Dumbledore's big plan, but maybe part of Dumbledore's scope and perspective on the world. It confirms Dumbledore's own beliefs.
Yes, yeah, that's a great way to put it. So yeah, I don't think Dumbledore sent Dobby to interfere with him at the Dursleys or anything like that.
Maybe if Dumbledore had been involved, the methodology would have been cleaner.
It feels like he could have gotten a little more he feels like Dumbledore would have been more successful at getting information out of Dobby than Harry was.
Yes, that seems likely. Because Dumbledore probably would have he would have his own version of like a calculating mind to try to be able to find the loopholes. But of course, Harry is operating, to no fault of his own, to a certain degree of ignorance, because he doesn't know much about house elves. And later, he seems to learn more about how to ask them and how to close some of the loopholes. I think when he's asking Creature to follow Draco for him. But that's something I could see Dumbledore having like his mind would probably work very well with a house elf's mind, to be able to be like, let me find ways to ask you questions that you will be capable of answering without having to like feel the need to cause harm to yourself.
Because like Harry's even trying to get like information. Like Dobby is like a motivated interrogee. He wants desperately to tell Harry the information. Harry's just not good at phrasing the questions in a way that lets him.
That will permit the answers. Yeah.
What a weird problem.
It was a clue, sir.
A clue. Not before he was called Voldemort. He could be freely named.
Oh,
not helpful.
Not helpful, Dobby. Well, helpful. I mean, we couldn't have done it without you in the end. But either way.
Could they? If Dobby hadn't shown up at all, would it have mattered?
It matters in Malfoy Manor.
It matters, I suppose. Yes, it gets that. That's true. That's true. Yeah. But does it affect Chamber of Secrets?
Does it affect... Ooh.
Is Dobby pointless in Chamber of Secrets?
Oh, darn it.
Is he Indiana Jones in this? Okay, let's see. We'll run it back here. Harry is in his room when the Masons come over.
Yep.
That dinner just goes according to plan.
Yep.
Also... Well, you know what? We can back it up further than that. Harry already would have received letters from Ron and Hermione and Hagrid. And many of those from Ron were asking Harry to come stay.
Right. So there's a good possibility he just would have gone to stay anyway. It would have been the Quidditch World Cup problem, where the Dursleys would have been torn between something that would make Harry happy and getting him out of their house.
Except they would, like, presumably Vernon knows the Masons deal is upcoming. And if he has a way to get Harry out of the house altogether, all the better.
Yeah, that's better for him.
Yeah, that's better for him. So I think no Dobby. Harry is out of there. Lickety split.
Yep. The twins and Ron don't need to take the flying car.
Ooh, no flying car though.
No flying car.
No flying car. No Dobby.
Oh, okay. Which is kind of an issue for Aragog.
Well.
But we've had this issue before.
Yeah.
Where you run into the issue of, like, if there's no flying car, then they don't take the Ford Anglia to school because they don't need you anyway, because Dobby
doesn't stop them. They just get on the train.
Right.
The Dursleys do probably get their vacation home.
They do in Majorca.
In Majorca.
Well, good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah. How about
hey,
that?
what do you know? That probably works out for them. I guess that's a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
They have somewhere to go when Voldemort attacks later.
And then Harry probably just has a really fun summer at the Weasleys.
Yep. Would still probably take the flu powder to Diagon Alley.
That could even just mess up to Nocturne Alley still.
Yeah,
that
I
could
think
all still play.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yep.
But then he doesn't get blocked at the station. So he just gets on the train. So there's no flying car at all. And then
they don't crash into the Whomping Willow.
They don't crash into the Whomping Willow. So they don't get in trouble. So he doesn't have detention with Lockhart.
Which is where he hears the basilisk.
Which is where he hears the basilisk for the first time, right?
But inevitably he would hear the basilisk some other time.
Right. That's where it gets tricky, because where he heard it might be around other people then.
Is the night that he hears it with Lockhart the night that Mrs. Norris gets attacked?
No, that's Halloween.
That's Halloween.
That's Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's at the feast. He's at the Death Day party, and they leave, and he hears it.
You're right.
And him and Ron and Hermione run up and find the cat.
So I think he just hears that, and the Mrs. Norris still attacks.
Yeah.
Although, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. Because, okay.
Okay, so then the next thing is the bludger. Right, they're at the Quidditch match.
Right.
And and he still wins.
He still
just
wins
doesn't have to
anyway.
go to the hospital.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. To me, the big issue would be, like, if the chamber is being opened again, then Hagrid would still be suspected again, and if Harry still ends up with the diary, which doesn't seem unlikely that those order of events would change, then they still have to follow the spiders, which still brings them into Aragog's Glade, and the thing that saves them from Aragog's Glade is the Ford Anglia.
Well, if Harry's not in the hospital wing, does Colin not get attacked? Right, because Colin is sneaking up to the hospital wing to bring him grapes.
Grapes.
Right?
It kills me every time. Why is it grapes?
Why is it grapes? What are you doing, Colin?
The man loves grapes.
Man loves grapes, pictures and grapes.
Yeah.
Let's see. Maybe that happens. But yeah, like it doesn't stop Hagrid from getting arrested, and it doesn't stop Ginny from getting the diary.
Mm-hmm.
So, God, the main thing that Dobby ends up affecting is that the car ends up in the forest.
I think that's the main thing.
That's the main thing, which is not something he's even trying to do or related to.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're right. So Dobby is a little bit pointless, but he is freed.
He does get freed. Because of his own actions, he ultimately gets freed.
Yes.
Yes, which is good. Which then pays off big time, of course, later down the line in like Goblet of Fire and Deathly Hallows and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Dobby ends up being massively important.
Yes.
But he might be irrelevant to Chamber of Secrets.
Right.
Darn.
Clue, sir.
No, it wasn't.
Not a clue.
Oh, man. Okay, well, there you go. That's Chamber of Secrets for you guys. Jay, do you have a review for us?
I sure do, Ben. This one's from Maggie Rose. It says, "Hey, brother, love listening to this podcast. I also read the HP books the first time when my dad read them to me when I was younger. I've listened to the books many times, but this gives me a whole new way to look at the story. Question: why does the Sword of Gryffindor not disappear after Harry uses it in Chamber of Secrets? If it is appearing to any Gryffindor in need, when and how does it disappear and go to the next one? Also, when was it last used before Harry pulled it out of the hat?"
So, okay. Obviously, this is just speaking from the unknowns because we don't have this history lesson. So it's not like the information exists out there. I think you are almost certainly going to be able to guess where I'm going to go with it immediately, which is, I think, most likely the last people to pull it, I think, are Molly's brothers,
yeah,
Fabian and Gideon,
Pruitt,
which is the Pruitts. So that's where the F and G comes from in Fred and George later on down the line.
Yeah.
And the big hypothesis there is just essentially that we know that Voldemort was seeking out artifacts from each of the founders. He needs like one more Horcrux to complete his set, and he needs one more Founder's Object specifically from Gryffindor in order to complete the set, which he intends to do over killing Harry, who is the son of two natural-born Gryffindors,
right,
in Godric's Hollow. Mm-hmm. So it's like he's in the home or he's in the town where Godric Gryffindor is like named for having been from.
Right.
You know, and carrying with him what we believe to be is the sword. So the attack on the Pruitts must have involved such a situation that manipulated, I think, by the Death Eaters, such that they were able to pull the sword through an act of valor so that it could then be taken from them in their ultimate defeat, so that Voldemort would have it to create and turn into a Horcrux. Of course, his Death Eaters would have no idea what he needed it for, but they might know how to enact the plan to achieve recovery of it.
Sure.
From there, I guess the really big question, is like, where and when does the sword go when it isn't? And
well, where do vanished objects go?
Into non-being.
Which is to say everywhere.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. It's like one of those things where I'm like, I think that that's the Ravenclaw knocker is like, well phrased. And I'm like, is it?
Is it? Was it?
I need like 30 more minutes to think about that to see if I understand. Yeah. But I think it seems like after Harry pulls it, it seems to just reside in Dumbledore's office all the way up until Dumbledore requires its usage to crack open
the ring.
I
guess the question would be, though, then, so Voldemort brings it to the Potter's house and fails to turn it into a Horcrux. Like, is it just sitting in the rubble until Harry pulls it out of the hat? Or does it vanish between those points?
It's a really good question.
Right.
It's a really good question. So let's think here. Because, I mean, the other thing that I've always loved is our little, like, play on words with the sorting hat, like the sword and hat, because the hat is Godric Gryffindor's hat.
Yeah.
So and that does, at least on two key occasions where it is pulled, that is where it is pulled from.
Right, it's from the hat. It occurs to me, so that we've made a video before about how the sword, like, has a master at a time, or like how, like, why Ron has to be the one to destroy the locket because he's the one who saves it. So, like, it occurs to me that, like, Snape or Bellatrix or whoever got the sword from the Pruitts, if that's what happened, like even Voldemort, he could carry it around, but, like, he could not, like, use it.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you could hold it, but if he tried to, like, actually sword somebody with it, like, that might prompt some sort of disappearance.
Yeah.
In which case it were like returned to, like, an origin point, or in, the space of vanished objects, or I don't know. Maybe, like, could it be in his grave? With Godric?
Be.
Yeah,
it could be. It could be. Yeah, I don't hate that explanation, certainly. And I like that thought, because it's like it seems like the magic, is meant to provide someone in particular who needs it under special circumstances. Which, I mean, I think we talked about this possibly in last week's episode, but like when Dumbledore uses it, it's almost like did Dumbledore have to, like, earn the right to use it to destroy the stone?
Right. And it's like, well, he was in the presence of the ring, so he might have, like, put the ring on, and that could have prompted the need for the sword. And then, like, even to this end, it's like, if it has to be pulled from the hat initially, like, it's not even the case. It could already be the case that it is implied that Dumbledore has handled the sword prior to Harry pulling it from the hat, because without examining it, he already knows it says Godric Gryffindor on it. Right. So it is possible that at some point in the past, he has procured it from the hat and then, like, is the one who gives it to the Pruitts, or it's, like, just part of the order in some way.
Sure.
And like I don't think Fabian and Gideon necessarily have to pull it from the hat if Dumbledore has already, like, given it to them.
Okay.
And, like, now they're in a position where they do need it. Like,
right.
In the same way that, like, Snape puts the sword in the pool.
Right.
And then that is now the condition for pulling it and becoming the master.
Right.
So, like, Dumbledore can give it to them, and as long as they need it, it will work. kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And we've even gone back all the way to like, the potential battle between Dumbledore and Grindelwald and, the possibility, that like whenever Dumbledore summoned it himself for the first time.
Oh, that'd be so great if he used it against Grindelwald.
It would be super cool.
That'd be great.
It would be super cool.
I would love that.
Yeah. There's so much more I'd like to see with that particular narrative. And
we're never going to know, Ben.
I know. We're never going to
know.
That's okay.
Did Newt give Hagrid Aragog? How did Hagrid help defeat Grindelwald? Did he pull the sword? Did Dumbledore's original wand act as a brother wand to the Elder Wand? So many questions.
There's so many questions, so few answers.
Questions. I know.
Yeah. That's okay though. I mean, because it allows us to keep talking about
Does
it.
Credence live in the Deluminator? Or the Obscurus or Ariana?
Is Fawkes the Phoenix that is wings from the water?
Yeah. Was that Fawkes?
Right. When does Dumbledore send the phoenix feathers from Fawkes to Ollivander to be made into wands?
It's got to be before the duel.
It's got to be before the duel. It's got to be before the duel. That's what it comes down to. Maybe Dumbledore thought that the phoenix feathers were meant for two different wands and was like almost surprised when those like wands didn't come into action, and then it was like then Tom Riddle got one and it was like that's weird.
Who's this kid?
Who's this guy?
Right.
The guy went to the orphanage and recruited. He got one.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
What's that?
If he had because we don't know, maybe is Fawkes Credence? Could that be a thing?
I think there's a possibility that Fawkes is Credence.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
Like that, the Phoenix Credence has isn't Fawkes, right?
What would that mean for the relationship between Dumbledore with Fawkes and Voldemort with Nagini when Credence and Nagini were
Even that feels like such a good mirror.
It feels like a great mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
they both found their way back.
They found their way somewhere.
I can see, or just like Dumbledore get Fawkes, and he's like, and Credence needs a new wand, so he tries like, Phoenix came to you. Let's make wands out of these, and then you're right. It's like, oh, that wand didn't choose you. Sorry. Yeah. Huh. Well, I guess you can just sell them to whoever, whatever. Whatever. No big deal.
Tom Riddle, what?
What? That kid? Oh, man.
Now keep an eye on him for like
Keep an eye on him. You didn't make it like super creepy looking, did you?
Oh,
what?
It looks like a bone.
Ollivander.
Oh man, yeah. Now we're just
in big conjecture territory.
We are indeed. But anyway, guys, I love answering your questions. The community that listens to this show has such phenomenal questions. So as per always, well, not even as per always, but going into next week's episode, we are going to be doing a question and answer where we are going to be tackling just your most burning Harry Potter book questions that you got.
Yes.
So there is a Google form attached to today's episode, whether in the description or in the show notes. Be sure to go in there, drop in your questions. We'll get to as many as we can in next week's episode. It should be so much fun. And then that will be our last episode in between Chamber of Secrets and the start of Prisoner of Azkaban, which you will be hearing from our live show in Boston.
Yes. My gosh. Which if you're listening, as we're recording it, there are still tickets available.
Yes, there are.
For Boston. And Philadelphia. But DC and New York, sold out.
Man, so exciting.
I know.
So exciting. It's going to be such a good time. So we are looking forward to seeing everybody in real life. But I think otherwise, until next time.
Yeah, until next time, we will see you through the Griffin Door.
Today's episode was edited by Isabel Chrisley. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager. And the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.
Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we answer your most burning Harry Potter questions.
Oh, man. Yeah, so we are like right in between the ending of Chamber of Secrets and the beginning of Prisoner of Azkaban, which the very next episode will be coming to you live from Boston. It is going to be kicking off the brand new Through the Griffin Tour, which is going to be so much fun. So cannot wait to hear what like a live episode ends up looking like. But in the meantime, we have sent out to you guys a Q&A document where you could basically submit any burning questions that you might have about the wizarding world. It doesn't have to be Chamber of Secrets, just about anything.
Just anything at all.
We had hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds.
So many questions to go through.
So many. You guys are remarkably good of thinking up odd little specificisms that we have not yet encountered inside of the wizarding world. So I'm so excited for this because I think today's episode we're going to be able to like really like dissect some new thoughts or just be like, okay, what to the best of our ability, how would we answer the question?
Yes. So here are you ready?
Should
we just dive?
Jay, I was born ready.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go then. We'll just dive right on in here in no particular order. Our first question is from Logan. Thanks for listening, Logan.
Okay.
Logan says, are squibs binary? Because even though it seems black and white, I think it might not be. The quick spell course suggests that squibs could learn some magic, and the quill and book of acceptance make it seem like there are varying degrees of magic, and the line between squib and wizard is not so clear cut. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, man, this is a good question. And I think, this was something we talked a lot about in Chamber of Secrets because, of course, we've got like our whole like Filch's a poltergeist, but the canon explanation is that Filch's a squib.
Right.
And then he does have the quick spell course document. However, at least, and so we'll break this into like two parts in terms of responding to Logan's question here. But the quick spell course is kind of interesting because I do think that this is one, because Filch is assigned that squib status, we tend to think that the course is potentially for squibs who might be able to learn like a modest amount of magic, like maybe like a lesser amount. But I don't actually think that that's true. I think that the quick spell course is like he has it, and it might be like sort of like him and his like insecurity towards his inability to do magic being like maybe I should look into something like this, and maybe we could rustle up some magical ability in me. I'll be able to pull something off. But I think it's more for like fully trained adult wizards who like maybe like have let a little bit of the information go by the wayside.
Right. For some reason didn't go to school or who just aren't good at magic.
Yes. Yeah. So like Tom Riddle's mother, Merope, for example, I think it's like one of those where it's very unclear as to whether or not she is educated at Hogwarts. So
it is unclear because Dumbledore makes it sound like as soon as her, father and brother weren't, harassing her anymore, she gained full access to her magical powers. And it's like, yes, but how did she know how to use them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it doesn't seem, and if anything, it almost seems like a circumstance where like an obscurus could potentially be in play. Like if she had been magical her whole life and it was being repressed by her, her father and brother.
Right.
That actually does seem like the prime circumstances. Like Harry, for example, when living with the Dursleys, doesn't develop an obscurus because he is not necessarily repressing his magic. He's just performing magic and doesn't realize that's what he's doing.
Right, but he's not like actively trying to hold it in.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. But it seems like more in Merope's situation, she is like incapable of performing magic, and then all of a sudden can like create like a love potion, which is like supposedly one of the most difficult to craft.
Potions out there.
Yeah.
Seems unlikely.
Seems
unlikely.
It does seem a little bit unlikely. We do have a whole theory that delves into the idea that like Horace Slughorn, who we know had been like the potions master at Hogwarts for a very long time, and who loved to collect, students and pupils of great talent or otherwise like family heritage.
Yeah.
Like people who are significant in some way.
Right.
Being a last living member of Salazar Slytherin to the head of Slytherin House for someone who has Slughorn's personality. Sometimes it's like did he help her craft the love potion that ensnared Tom Riddle Sr. that led to the birth of Tom Riddle Jr. that led to the creation of Horcruxes by
Right. Did he just like accidentally do a big whole bunch of whoopsies?
A whole bunch of whoopsies where it's like, Slughorn is kind of regarded as like more, congenial. He's friendlier as far as Slytherins
go, yeah.
But maybe not so great. So anyway, I know that was a huge tangent down a variety of different topics.
Right.
But
the answer is, I think if you are a squib, you cannot learn magic.
You can't learn magic.
Right, yeah.
Yes. What is interesting is sort of this next sentiment that Logan points out, which is that like there is the quill and book of acceptance, which I think this is like Pottermore Archives additional reading, but the rough idea is that, let's see here, the quill will spark to life when it registers somebody is capable of performing magic, but the book will only allow the name to be written once it confirms that the magical ability is sufficient to attend the school.
I think it is something like that. So it does imply like a certain like level of like varying degrees of magic. Like you could be like it suggests that like there's a situation where you could have some magic but not enough to go to Hogwarts or something.
My mind sort of goes to like a Harvard situation where it's like, you and I were both okay students and graduated high school with okay GPAs, but neither of us was capable of getting into Harvard.
Right, sure.
So like on that level, you could almost even think that like maybe like Neville isn't particularly good at magic for his first several years, but he still got into Hogwarts.
Right.
It's like
yeah. This is like it's a weird thing. Is there must be varying like powers of magic or power levels of magic.
Sure.
I guess, but like I cannot fathom. We are certainly never exposed to anyone ever who was not let into Hogwarts because they weren't magical enough, despite being a little bit magical.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't like even Neville's quote unquote display of magic is he doesn't get hurt when dropped from a building. Like,
right.
He just sort of like bounces. So like he's not even like that is like just like instinctual reaction magic, he's not doing anything. I don't think like I can't imagine what that line is. It seems like if you have any magic, you can be you are allowed in. Like I can't imagine they would turn someone away because they weren't magical enough.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, so maybe I don't know, like this. I mean, it almost goes more into like a like recessive gene type situation where it's like he or she has the recessive magical gene but is not actually magical, meaning fully capable of maybe having children who would be magical and therefore accepted, but like do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. That still just seems like or like if for some reason your magic just had like not manifest, like if you like were a magical but like it just had like not manifested or something by the time you were like 11 or something.
Yeah,
like just zero magic was coming out of you until you turned like 15.
Right,
like,
right.
Maybe there's a situation like that, but I think if you can do magic, you can go. But then like as far as like there being different levels of magic, like they talk about like Dumbledore and Voldemort being just like insanely powerful.
Yes.
But like using Neville as another great example, like Neville apparently like barely registers right at first, but like clearly by the end he's insanely powerful.
Yeah, he's a really good wizard.
He's a very good wizard. So to me it's like it feels more like muscles or something, or like, talent versus hard work. A little bit like maybe Dumbledore was just genetically born with big magic muscles.
Right,
like he just was. He's just gifted in that way, wins the genetic lottery. That seems to be like what it is. Whereas Neville, very much not the case. Really has to work for it. But the good news is if you keep going to the gym and you keep lifting more weights and you keep at it, you will get strong.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Your body does not care, it might hurt, but you will get stronger. And as long as he keeps doing it, like obviously Neville does become very powerful.
Right.
So but like at the same rate, not any of us could like be Michael Phelps or something. You know,
yes, yeah,
like there, you know, you could swim and swim and swim and put in all the practice in the world, and maybe you could make it to the Olympics, and you could still be like an immensely good swimmer, but like there's always going to be that Michael Phelps out there who was just born to be in the water, and there's no amount of training. Like maybe you could beat him if he wasn't also training, but the thing is he is.
But he is.
It feels like Dumbledore and Voldemort fall into like the Michael Phelps range of magic.
Yes.
Where it's like they were born with insane muscles to begin with, and they did nothing but flex them their whole lives.
They're just built different.
And it doesn't mean other people can't be powerful. It's just like they have some genetic advantage that they have exploited to the nth degree, even though you too can become very powerful.
Right. Yep. So it's an interesting question from Logan, because I don't know that I've fully given that proper thought before, but I think, at least based on the existing canon, I think that's as far as you could answer it. Like, yeah, you know, so it's like, is magic binary, or could I don't think squibs can learn magic, and it does seem like you are either magical and that is enough, or you're not and you're not.
Right.
You know,
that's just, yes.
So I guess my answer is I do think it's binary, even though once you become magical, I think there's more of like a spectrum of abilities.
Yes.
That can be manifested either through talent or hard work, which could be a potentially good question as we move on to the next one, which is going to come from Katharina, which says, and I think these fit together rather nicely. Why did Ron get the old hand-me-down wand from Charlie? Why would a wand ever be handed down if a wand chooses the wizard, and would therefore never need to be updated as long as it's not broken, and Charlie's wand wasn't? Did Charlie get a hand-me-down as well and only get his real wand later on? Otherwise, it makes no sense to give his own away, right? I don't think that wands are usually repurchasable item. Thanks.
This is a great question, because you're right. Everything we know about wands suggests that like you would never pretty much buy a new one lest your original one broke.
Yes. And my thinking here with Charlie in particular, and I think this is kind of interesting, is I am fairly certain, in fact, I would say I am certain, that when Ron is attempting to stop the flying Ford Anglia as it's like crashing into the Whomping Willow, you know, he's yelling like, stop, and it snaps, and then it's like hanging on by a unicorn hair.
Yeah.
And so I think it's ash wood with unicorn hair core. And to me, the core is what I think is most likely what's going on with Charlie in particular, because he, of course, goes on to work with dragons, and the other like most popular other than Phoenix Feather and unicorn hair is a dragon heartstring core. And so in my mind, what I almost imagine is like Charlie goes out into the world, he's working with the dragons in Romania and successfully harvests his own like dragon heartstring core.
Right. I can see something like that.
Of like a dragon that he has like a particular like affinity with. Mm-hmm. And therefore like Charlie has like a wand that like reflects who he has become as like an adult wizard.
Yeah, I can see something like that.
And then I could see a situation where Ron is going to school, and you know, like Charlie at this point in time, having gone through his whole education, is sort of like, hey, you know, Molly and Arthur, mom and dad, I have my other wand. If you'd like to send that with Ron, you know, to save the 7 to 10 galleons.
I know. I can. That was sort of my thought almost, is that like I could see a world where Charlie's already graduated, because that is the case when Ron is going to Hogwarts, and like he hands it down as like almost more like a favor, like, oh, I have plenty of means to get my own wand. You know, if Ron needs one, he can just have my old one.
So do you have any thoughts on the suggestion here that Charlie's wand was also a hand-me-down?
Well, that makes I don't think his was, because we know that Ron's first wand, which is handed down to him from Charlie, is like the worst possible combination of wood and core to be passed on.
Yes, like everything about it suggests that like this is a wand that like locks into its like original master, and like will not work as well for just about anybody else.
Exactly. And Charlie is not described as being lackluster at magic at any point ever.
True.
So I think had his been handed down, he would have had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well.
The other thing as well is that like when Charlie was going to school, he would have been only the second, because I think Bill's the oldest.
Bill is the oldest, yeah.
And so I think, like at that point in time, it seems a lot less likely that the Weasley, they wouldn't have put so many kids through school.
Right. And then I guess
Charlie
like Fred, like Percy and Fred and George could still be born already.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So like they could know that there's a lot of other expense that's going to be coming down the pipeline, but maybe a slightly better opportunity for expenses not to have grown so tight for the Weasley family yet.
I think that's pretty possible. I also like the idea. I like your idea that like he has like harvested some kind of dragon heartstring from some sort of like situation with the creature, because like that's not unheard of.
Yeah.
Like we know like that Fleur, her wand core is a Vila hair from like her grandmother.
I believe from her grandmother.
Yeah. So that's like a special connection to a wand, and Fleur obviously is very good at magic.
Yes.
And then even Isolde Sire, yes, who founds Ilvermorny in America, her wand core is from a horned serpent, which like calls to her in a dream, and she like goes and finds it and like just harvests it straight from it. Even Salazar Slytherin, his wand core is from the basilisk itself.
Yes.
So it's like there is a certain like connection with animal or connection with fantastic beast that yields powerful wand for wizard.
Yes, absolutely. So it just like that to me stands to reason. It's like what would ever outweigh your original wand, and like it almost seems odd to me to imagine Charlie, who works with dragons, to have a unicorn hair wand versus a dragon heartstring wand. Like that just seems like it would be the better fit.
Right. And it's like there probably is no like I doubt the other wand stopped working for him. It's like everyone says the wand chooses the wizard, but there's nowhere that says more than one wand can't choose a wizard.
Right.
I also think that we, the readers, know a lot about wand lore because it ends up being very important to Harry's specific story.
Yes.
But even in the story, almost nobody knows anything about wand lore. Like, Ollivander's very cryptic about it, and Harry has to learn a lot of it directly from Ollivander, and it's not like common knowledge to everyone at all.
What a really good point. Like, that would almost be like aliens coming and landing on Earth and assuming we all know like physics.
Right.
Like, it's like you live on this planet. How do you not know your own physics?
Right. Like, and you guys have space travel.
Right. Yeah. It's like not all of us do.
Not all of us do.
It's like, what?
I don't know.
Yeah. No. So that's a really good point. Is that like we as the audience have grown so accustomed to it, but like that could be the type of thing where even if you were to go to the hardware store to find a replacement, pipe to go into your plumbing or something, you might pick the wrong pipe because you don't know much about plumbing. So
you're like, you don't know the pipes. You use that toilet every day. You don't know the pipes that go to it. And it's like, I sure don't.
I definitely do not. No. So I could definitely see Molly and Arthur just giving Ron the wand and being like, yeah, we have a spare wand.
Yeah, great.
There we go.
There you go.
That is such a good point, though. I've never considered that.
Yeah.
So, okay.
There you go.
I like it. So great question. All right, moving on.
All right, let's see. I missed one at the top here. It's sort of a long one. I'm going to skip down. It says, Hiya, Jay and Ben. Absolutely adore the show. Crazy to think we're already on Prisoner. Question for you. In Half-Blood Prince, Chapter 4, Slughorn knows how to cast the Dark Mark. Surely he must have assisted Riddle in creating the spell during his Hogwarts days.
Oh, man.
Question mark.
So,
yeah, so what's happening here is that in an effort to hide from Dumbledore or the Death Eaters, whoever, Slughorn casts the Dark Mark over the Muggle dwelling that he is hiding in, right? To make it look like he's dead.
Does he cast the Dark Mark, or is it like, did he forget the Dark Mark?
Boy, now I'm questioning it.
I know. Isn't there something?
I was taking the question at face value.
I know. I'm trying to remember. Like. Doesn't he say, what gave me away?
Oh.
Or is there something else?
Or is it the dragon's blood that gives him away?
Dragon's blood.
The Dark Mark, sure. Yeah. But it does either way. He like alludes to like, I forgot to put the Dark Mark up then.
Yeah, right? maybe you're right. Okay, so I'm getting caught in the weeds. Okay, so we'll go with that.
Either it's there or he says he forgot to put it there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But either way, he knows how to do it.
He knows how to do it. Yeah, and Slughorn's odd because he, as a character, is obviously attracted to people who have power, but like he definitely is somebody who prefers the back seat.
Right.
Like, you know, because I think
more room to spread out.
More room to spread out. Exactly. Yeah. So it's like he likes to have fancy friends, but he himself is never really like seeking power and has spent most of his career as like a school teacher. You know, so it's not like he's out there like doing like this major things, but he also says that he like the Death Eaters have been attempting to recruit him for going on like a year now.
Yeah.
And like that's like part of like why he's like out on the run. So it's like the Death Eaters want him, which is kind of odd because it just seems like anybody who the Death Eaters would approve as like a Death Eater worthy candidate is probably affiliated with the dark arts in some way. And we know that Slughorn also does teach Tom Riddle about Horcruxes,
right,
which, you know, would otherwise be like deep reading into some of the, you know, most dark magic that there is. Are you reading on something?
I'm trying to find the exact line here in the book as you talk. But if the Death Eaters had come to call, the dark mark would have been set over the house. The wizard clapped a pudgy hand to his vassal. The dark mark, he muttered. Knew there was something. Ah, well, wouldn't have had time anyway. I'd only just put the finishing touches to my upholstery when you entered the room.
Okay.
So it does make it sound like he knows how to do it.
It does make it sound like he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
So that becomes a question then of a couple of different things. One, does he have nefarious affiliation? Because, I mean, again, even with Slughorn, it's like it comes down to the Battle of Hogwarts, where McGonagall is basically like, yo, Slughorn, you got to pick a side, man, because we duel to kill.
Yeah.
And Slughorn's like, my dear, like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, even when Dumbledore's talking to him here when they're recruiting him, he's like, if I accept the position, I may as well be declaring for you against the Death Eaters. And like he doesn't want to do that because he doesn't want them to target him.
Yes.
But like he's already been hiding from them from a year. So it's like he clearly doesn't want to join them, but he also doesn't want to do anything. Like he's clearly against them, but he doesn't want them to know he's against them.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, right. Yes,
Yeah.
I think that's very well phrased, because I think what that probably means is that he's not out there like looking to join ranks, because I think he just doesn't want to get caught in the fray.
Right.
You know, like it would be more likely for him to just like lay low and be a complete and utter third party that's not involved.
Right.
Because even if he goes up against them, maybe it's a side he agrees with more, but then he has to fight them, which also puts his life in danger.
Yeah.
Which is like probably the key thing that Slughorn is attempting to avoid.
Right.
At all
But
costs.
I think, but like, how would a non-Death Eater know the dark mark?
Like, how would they know how to perform it?
Yeah.
I know, that's a good question too. And it's like, I think that the next question becomes, what is the complexity of the spell that is the dark mark?
Right.
You know, or is it more like saying like a cuss word or something where it's like yeah, I know how to say it.
I mean, we know the incantation.
Morse Mordre.
Morse Mordre.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, do you just need to know that? It seems like you would need to know more, but it doesn't seem like, it's never alluded to that Slughorn's like an ex-Death Eater or something.
No.
know?
It's certainly not. Man, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would suggest.
I suppose it's possible he can like get the gist of it in the air. You know, like, I don't know the exact words, but I can make something that looks like a green skull float above this house.
You know, the other aspect of it, and maybe I could defeat my own point I'm attempting to make with further evidence, but it also doesn't necessarily seem like I think at Ron at one point in time, maybe he's talking about the Snatchers and not Death Eaters, but he's like, you know, they're kind of dim, really. Like it wasn't that hard to beat them,
right?
And like I don't know. Clearly, like you've got characters like Barty Crouch Jr., Bellatrix, Dolohov, like, you know, those are like gifted, skilled, dark
A-tier
wizards
Death Eaters,
who are dangerous. But then you've also got instances where like it's almost like the Crab and Goyle to like Malfoy. Like obviously, Crab, I think, ends up learning Fiend Fire somewhere along the way. And like, you know, that's a pretty advanced spell. Granted, he doesn't know, he has no way of stopping it. So it's like once he does it, it's just like, well,
one smart.
Right, leads to his own death. So maybe that speaks to the thickness. But what I was going to say is that, like, you know, if you've got a whole bunch of these Death Eaters out there, none of whom are super gifted wizards, but maybe are looking more for like a big, powerful, big bad to tie your allegiance to as like a way to like ride to power.
Yeah.
Then it's like, it can't be that complicated if the other Death Eaters know how to do it. And if nothing else, we know Slughorn is a good and gifted wizard.
Well, we know that too. It's also possible that like the dark mark is not like invented by Voldemort, merely like adopted by him.
Sure.
You know,
that's
like
another good point.
maybe like skull with snake coming out of it is like a known image in the wizarding world, and Voldemort's like, well, clearly I'm using this because Slytherin,
yeah, like I mean, even like when the basilisk like exits through Salazar Slytherin's mouth, like in the Chamber of Secrets movie, it's like a very like parcel tongue type situation.
Yeah, I'm trying to think like Nazis didn't invent the swastika.
I have thought the same thing about Nazis, and I was like, I don't know enough about Nazis to know the origin point for that particular symbol.
Well, I'm like, I never like bringing up like Nazis at all, but I'm like, that's not what Death Eaters are either. So,
a little bit, yeah. I mean, the allegory is certainly there.
Yeah.
That you've got a very pure blood mania, megalomaniac.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you could draw those comparisons for certainly like that symbol would definitely be there. The other thing too could just literally be that if Slughorn is so determined to protect his own life that he learned how to do it in the name of exactly the circumstances under which we find him.
That feels like the most likely thing.
Yeah,
that like he learned how to do it as a means of protection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like he's not casting it. That probably makes the most sense.
That probably makes the most sense. Now that we've talked through it for 10 minutes.
10 minutes. But that's the actual context that we discover him using it.
That's
under.
that's deep.
If he had used it, it's not because he committed murder in the house. It's because he wants someone to think he committed murder so they won't enter.
Right. Even though you'd think then other people would enter.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it does seem like a real smoking gun situation. I don't see it as calling cards are just terrible decisions in general for professional criminals.
Yeah.
It's like don't leave evidence.
I know, right? Come on now. What are you
not
doing?
that I'm trying to help the criminals. Leave evidence for sure.
Definitely do. Yeah. Get caught, why don't you?
But guys, we need to take a brief pause right there to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Shopify, where I've got a little bit of a story time for you where 2 years ago, my wife Alice, who since the day that I met her has been absolutely obsessed with secondhand clothing, came to me with the idea of opening a new business called Nude. It's like, the past tense of new. It's nude. Old is the new nude. You get it. Anyway, we had both been in business for quite some period of time, but she was completely hung up on how to get started selling these clothes online. But fortunately, I had experience with Shopify. So despite the fact that we were both running completely other businesses and we were parents to like a 6-month-old child, in 2 weeks flat, we had a Shopify website up and running and making sales. If you're on the fence at all, whether it's the like how to set up your first online store to like opening a real brick and mortar location to the like we just sold 1 million items phase of your business, like Shopify truly is there to help you succeed. Plus, even in the event that you do end up having questions, which you may, even in the event that you do end up having questions, which you totally might, even in the event that you do end up having questions, Shopify's award-winning customer service is there to help you every step of the way. So sign up today for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Griffin. That's all lowercase. Again, go to shopify.com/Griffin now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Griffin. Link in the description down below.
All right. Next up, we've got a question from Rebecca who says, "Hi, I've always wondered how wizards calculate blood status. 2 purebloods obviously make a pureblood. A pureblood and muggle/muggle born make a half-blood, but then it becomes hazy. What if a pureblood and a half-blood have a kid, or a half-blood and muggle born, or 2 muggle borns? Like, what blood status would those be?" It's like, great question. Blood math in Harry Potter makes no sense, which is exactly the point, by the way.
Yes, I do think on some level it's like it's nonsense because it is nonsense.
It is nonsense at the surface, which is why the entire blood purity argument makes no, which it doesn't make sense to begin with and from the start, but at least in terms of like how you would calculate it, because it does seem like, well, like if like Hermione and Ron, when they have kids, Hermione is a witch and Ron is a wizard. So would their kids be pureblood, or are they half-blood because Hermione's parents were muggle-born?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and I think that they call Harry half-blood.
Yes.
On this
exact grounds.
On this exact right.
Right.
Because I mean, both Lily and James. James comes from a pureblood line.
Yep.
Lily is a muggle-born witch, but both parents are magical. And
right.
he's half-blood.
And Harry is considered half-blood. Whereas like Voldemort, he has pure blood on one side, complete muggle on the other side, also half-blood. Right. It would seem like Harry would, like, why wouldn't you call Harry pure blood if both parents were magical? And the answer is because it's all made up, basically. Okay, so there is.
Do you mean all of Harry Potter didn't really happen?
I mean, well, that for one.
Okay.
But like all of the idea of blood status is just like basically made up, right? There's like the list of the Sacred 28, which is the 28 pure blood families. And the way they would have you believe it is that no muggle has been involved in their lineage for all of time. Because the way blood status works is if like your great-great-great-grandfather had a muggle wife, you'd be half-blood.
Right.
If there was a muggle anywhere in your lineage, 8 generations back, you're a half-blood. Anything between 1% and 99% is half-blood.
In fact, we can even go beyond that too, because like I'm fairly certain that we know when the Sacred 28 list was released, the Potter family is specifically left off of it because Harry's like great-great-grandfather or something was minister for magic or worked in the ministry and like was in favor of wizard involvement in World War I believe.
Something like that.
Which is like where Newt Scamander's brother Theseus clearly like was on the same side as the Potters during the same era, because Theseus is like the war hero from World War I.
Right.
So like Theseus could have had direct contact with Harry's forefathers, essentially. But what that also means is that like there was such politics involved that like as of the creation of the list, they were actively just excluding names because of allegiances.
Right.
So if they made the list in the 90s where like the Weasleys are known as, like blood traitors, they almost certainly wouldn't be on the list because they'd be such blood traitors.
Exactly. And like the list was made by the people on the list as a way to elevate their own status.
Yes.
And now, which is not to say that like every single family on the list is involved. Clearly they, like, I don't imagine like the Weasleys or the Longbottoms ancestors who were on the list were involved in the creation of it. But like the point is the act of creating the list, basically, even if your family was not pure blood, it basically resets your blood status to, like, if the Malfoys like weren't considered pure blood, but they were like, well, we're going to make a list of all the pure blood families, and look at that, we're on it. From that point forward, they may as well have been for the history of all history. Right. So the list is made by pure bloods or people who care about their status being elevated to that, and they make it for the sole purpose of elevating their status under the guise that being pure blood makes you better, which it doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's all just made up.
It's all,
and it doesn't matter. But for the sake of how you would figure it out, unless if you ever had any Muggle anywhere in your family tree and you're related to that person, you're a half-blood.
Yes.
Even if you are otherwise like 6 generations back and you're basically 99% magical, half-blood. Half-blood.
Yeah.
Yep.
So there you go. So it's all utter nonsense. But
all complete nonsense.
What are you going to do?
Yep. Anyway, there we go. Next question. Pippa, why did Barty Crouch Jr., as Mad-Eye Moody, make sure Harry could resist the Imperious Curse?
Okay, so yeah, we're in Goblet of Fire at this point.
Yes.
This is where Barty Crouch Jr. is being a remarkably good Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher for someone who's actively and very specifically attempting to kill Harry.
Yes.
He is equipping him with some mighty good tools. There's the famous scene where he teaches the 3 unforgivable curses, and Harry just basically successfully overrides the Imperious Curse of like his second try.
Yeah, pretty quickly, very quickly he overcomes it.
Yeah.
And at which point, so I have a couple of thoughts on this.
Okay.
First of all, I don't think Barty Crouch Jr. sets out to make sure Harry can resist this curse. I think he is a Death Eater who is bored teaching high schoolers and is casting the Imperious Curse on them because it's fun.
Okay,
because he sucks.
So you're thinking like, because I think what he explains is some version of like Dumbledore thinks you ought to know.
Yeah, that's what he says.
That's what he says. Okay, but you think in reality he's like, okay, I am a dark wizard and I like dark magic, so I'm gonna do dark magic under the guise of it being a lesson.
Right, like I'm teaching you, but he's just messing. I think he's just messing with them.
See, that is actually an incredibly useful interpretation, because a lot of times it is almost like, why is he such a good teacher if his goal is the obvious outcome? Like it's kind of one of those things where like I never really know how to feel about Moody after Goblet of Fire, because it's almost as if the resting belief is that Barty Crouch Jr.'s version of Moody was so good that everybody who's ever known Moody is able to go off of what they learned from Barty Crouch Jr.'s version of him. So it's like everything Moody says and does sounds exactly like Barty Crouch Jr.'s version of Moody.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it's like
he's so good at it.
Right.
But so I think, I don't think he's necessarily trying to make sure Harry knows how to toss it off, like fight the Imperious Curse. I think much to his surprise, Harry fights it off.
Yes.
And he is shocked by this, but then because he's playing the role, he has to seem impressed by it.
Sure.
And carry on with that. However, it is also possible that he, for some reason, does want him to fight it off solely as a way of like helping frame the other contestants later on, because like in the maze, he casts Imperio on Crumb.
He does.
And then has Crumb
attack,
perform the Cruciatus Curse on the other contestants.
Right.
So it seems possible to me that he is planning something like this in the future, is going to have Crumb under the Imperious Curse and then have Crumb cast Imperio on Harry. Harry will shake it off, but then be able to fight back and have good reason to fight Crumb and like do harm to him because now he's been attacked with an unforgivable curse or something.
True.
Yeah. But it also seems like you could just Imperio Harry and just make him touch the cup.
I mean, on some level, like that could be part of like what he's learning is like, because I think what you can assume is that by the time the maze challenge comes around, there is enough anonymity in terms of the actions that Crouch is taking. Like he is able to just in front of apparently an audience of onlookers cast the Imperious Curse on Crumb in the first place. Right. So this could be the type of thing where he's like, yeah, if we get to the maze, all I have to do is Imperious Harry clear his path, and I know how to get through the maze. So he could just send him through it, and it would be like, as long as he gets to the maze, he'll win. Right. And no trouble. Right. And so that could be a type of thing where like, he even learns, because I mean, this is like anybody who like watches tape for someone who they have to compete with in the future. It's like you're not just learning their weaknesses, you're learning their strengths. So it's like by teaching or by performing the Imperious Curse on Harry and realizing that he can withstand it is pretty vital information. Because if he tried to do it, if you'd been relying on that for the maze, it wouldn't have worked. Exactly. See, it's intel. It is intel. Yeah, you're right. So then you know something. It's like, okay, we can't that can't be in our playbook because that won't work. Right. It's pretty unlikely this kid can throw off the unforgivable curse, but in the event that he does, I'll know what to do. Exactly. Right. So that I like that explanation too. Also, it to him it probably does not matter because even if he teaches Harry successfully how to do it, who cares? They're just going to deliver Harry straight to Voldemort, and Voldemort's just going to kill him in 2 seconds anyway. Right. He doesn't see a world where Harry escapes the graveyard or needs to be put under the Imperious Curse. Like, good, you can fight off the Imperious Curse. Who cares? You can't fight off Avada Kedavra again. Except that you can. Yeah, sorry. That also, they're very arrogant and don't consider these things. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's one of my favorite lines from Dumbledore, but it's like the of children's tales and house elves. Yeah. It's like he thinks very little. Like, you don't know how to give proper attention to the things that you underestimate. Yeah. So exactly. All right. So what do we got next? All right. Let's see. Next up, we have one from Marlene and Thomas, which actually I think ties in nicely to this last one. It says, Harry was protected by Lily's sacrificial love charm, therefore Voldemort could not touch or kill him. Dumbledore said that Voldemort tethered Harry to life by using his blood in his own resurrection, but why was this even relevant if Harry was already protected by the charm? Therefore, he wasn't at risk of dying by Voldemort's, or at least by Voldemort's hand anyway, which is great question.
You have an answer?
No. I mean,
okay.
I think that you're like correct. It's a great question, but I do think it plays very nicely, at least my answer would, into what we were just talking about a little bit, which is the sheer arrogance of Voldemort and his obsessive need to be the one who takes Harry down by his own hand.
Yeah, there is that, and then there's also like you might think, yes, like why does it matter if Harry is tethered to Voldemort if he's already got Lily's protection? So right, like even if Voldemort didn't take his blood, if he tried to kill Harry, the protection would still stand, right?
Oh, sure.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
Yes, the protection would still stand. The issue and the reason it matters that he takes the blood into himself is that Harry has become a Horcrux himself.
Yes.
Right. So what we need is a way for Harry to successfully die. And if he has the protection just in himself, then Voldemort will not be able to even hit him with Avada Kedavra. Therefore, the Horcrux inside of him will not be able to die.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Much better explanation. Yeah. Way more succinct.
Yeah.
And I do love what this ends up doing in sort of like a it's like a little bit like poetic, you know, it rhymes with one another. And Harry and Voldemort do this constantly. Like you've got the red eyes of Voldemort versus the green eyes of Harry versus the red allegiance of Gryffindor versus the green of Slytherin.
Right.
And, like Harry's spell is always depicted as red and Voldemort's is always depicted as green.
Yep.
And so you've got like this mirroring effect that's like constantly going on between these two characters where they're always kind of reflecting one another, and that ends up ultimately being true because like Harry is just as much a Horcrux for Voldemort as Voldemort ends up by his own decision making for Harry. But we always have titled this instead of like a Horcrux that lives inside of Tom Riddle, we always call it like the love crux. So basically like Harry is tethered to life by this piece of himself that exists inside of Voldemort, even though the thing that exists inside of Voldemort is not the same thing as a Horcrux.
Right. Yes.
So yeah, but that's I like your explanation though. That's a lot better.
Yeah, basically it matters because now Harry, because Harry's a Horcrux and Harry needs to die, and Dumbledore always knows that. But once Voldemort takes the blood into him, it means that Harry can die and not die.
Yes.
There you go.
We need for him to be able to die, but not die.
But and come back.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. So let's see. Next up is from Jacob Teeves, who says, "Hey, brother, I have a question for you. Why doesn't Harry burn the diary like he did with Quirrell?"
Oh man, that's a great question.
Great question, right?
Okay, so set up here for context is basically when we get to the end of Philosopher's Stone, Harry is realistically, I mean, he's like uniquely capable of getting the stone from the mirror.
Yep.
Which is something that Tom Riddle could, or Voldemort or Quirrell could never do because they're not selfless enough to do so, like Harry and all of his greatness. But otherwise, Harry at that point in time does successfully retrieve it and is then outclassed by the other wizard in the room.
Right.
Wizards, I guess, if you want to think of them as two different entities. And obviously what happens is because Harry still has Lily's sacrificial protection living inside of him, Quirrell is physically unable to touch Harry, and basically Harry can just kind of like burn Quirrell's face off. Yeah, I think in the movie it makes it look like Harry kills Quirrell. Yeah.
That is not how it goes down in the book.
Yeah, so Harry never kills.
Harry never Quirrell. Yeah, it is Voldemort who kills Quirrell.
Yes.
Yeah, and Harry just like harms him.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, but Harry has no kills on his hand. On his hands, literally in this case. Yeah, but the reason it burns Quirrell is because Quirrell is effectively acting as a Horcrux at that time.
Right.
So this person's asking, well, if it burns Quirrell when Harry touches him, why doesn't the diary get burned by Harry's skin as well? Because that feels like it would be the same thing, right?
It definitely does. I see the issue.
Yeah.
I mean, and realistically, like all of the Horcruxes, that he handles, I don't know at what point in time, because they were all made before Voldemort has taken Harry's blood into him. So it's like,
they're all made before. Yeah. Right.
Right.
So yeah, but like when he handles the locket, it doesn't burn the locket.
It doesn't burn the locket.
Yeah, when he handles, I don't know if he ever touches the cup with his hands, or if he's ever only just holding it with the sword. I think he does, right?
That's like like I know that he scoops it with the sword.
Yeah,
like he sticks the little the little handle through the sword blade. Which even that's almost like, it seems like that there's a chance that even as gently as those two objects are touching, that the sword...
Yeah, the sword should have just done it right there.
Just destroyed it,
yeah.
but it doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah, because they get the fang for it.
Okay, so what do you think for our diary question? Because it's a good one.
I think the difference is whether or not it is... Because it doesn't work on the locket, and I don't think it works on the cup, and it doesn't do anything to the diary. So I think the difference is that it has to be a living creature.
Okay.
So that they're just objects. And that's why it doesn't do it. But it then makes you wonder, shouldn't Nagini burn if Harry touches it? Because Nagini is also made prior to Voldemort getting the blood.
You're right.
Yes.
And Nagini does come into physical contact with Harry inside of
Bathilda Bagshot.
Bathilda Bagshot.
Yeah.
Ooh, dang.
I know. I'm like, so part of me is like, now I think Nagini just sort of like wraps him up. So it's possible Nagini is only touching his clothes and not his physical skin.
Seems tricky.
It does seem very tricky.
And it would be incredibly risky.
Yes.
To potentially like lose another piece of your soul in the event that all Harry has to do is touch it.
It does seem risky. It's possible that even though Nagini is made prior to Voldemort coming back, that once he takes the blood into himself, it like affects all the souls anyway.
That was giving me my next question as well. Yeah, like does that matter? Like is there, because I mean that you're stepping into the oasis of basically never before seen lengths that somebody's gone to in the field of magic by making so many Horcruxes. So it's like there's no other precedent you can really base it off of.
Excuse me.
I
know. I personally think if Harry had been able to lay hands on Nagini, it should have burned her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's one of those where it's like, well, like, you know, it's pretty hard to, like, it's very difficult to lay hands on Nagini without Nagini biting you.
Yeah.
Problem, you know?
Yep.
Like,
and I mean, but that would be the only situation where Nagini and Harry would be having direct physical contact, right?
I think so. I think that's the only time Harry and Nagini have. I mean, Harry visits the inside of Nagini's mind, I guess. Nah, he's really visiting Voldemort's mind while Voldemort's inside Nagini's mind, right?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And
yeah, that's a sentence right there.
Harry is like piggybacking on Voldemort's control of Nagini.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't think that counts. But like when Voldemort possesses Harry, it does burn him.
It does burn him.
So
that's true.
That's still, but that doesn't seem like it should work either. Well, no, I guess it does, but but so I don't care. I think I don't know if we ever hear Harry touch Nagini, but it feels like, I guess does Bathilda take his arm at one point?
She might, but he's also wearing like a jacket.
I guess he's wearing a jacket. I guess she's wearing Bathilda. That's a gross sentence.
She's wearing Bathilda. Yeah, that one's like horrifying.
That's a whole horrifying scene if you think about it too long.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is the point. I mean, that is literally the scene they used to describe like beyond typical evil.
Yes. So really the question I think that you have to come down to is then, like, are there protective enchantments, or is there something different about the inanimate objects as containers for Voldemort's soul that has a less volatile reaction than what we see with Quirrell? Because that is the question at hand here. Like, should the diary have been damaged, or is there like a world where like the diary was like magically enhanced? I mean, like, is it the case that like even when Harry picks it up, is it waterlogged when he picks it up in the bathroom, or is it like somehow like free?
No, it's dried, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Because like the ink doesn't stain it or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like impervious.
Yeah, it's like impervious in some way. I don't know. It's like he's not like when he's touching the diary, he's not like touching the soul directly, you know.
True.
But like Quirrell's alive. I don't know. That seems to be the difference to me, is that whether the creature is alive or not.
I know. Well, then the other big question is like destroying the container. So like, you know, when, let's see here. Like I'm thinking of the locket, for example. Like at some point in time, Harry opens the locket so that Ron can destroy it. And it like to the point where it's almost like, did he need to open the locket in order to destroy it? Or is that just sort of like something that he does, like, because you get like the visual kind of...
You do get like the visual side of it. It does seem like if he had just like whacked it, it should have worked.
Right,
I know.
right.
They are all just certain you have to open it to destroy it.
Right.
It's almost like, yeah, so I've always just sort of believed them for saying that, even though we don't know. They never try to hit it with the sword otherwise.
That to me, that would suggest that like a new layer of vulnerability that Horcruxes don't just have in the first place, which might suggest that like if there was a way, like when Harry is visiting Tom Riddle in the side of it, like inside of his diary, or he really can't touch Tom Riddle in the chamber because he's not like really fully formed.
Right.
He's not solid, which almost makes
pick up the wand.
He does pick up the wand.
Yeah.
But it almost makes me think that part of the reason that Tom Riddle in the Chamber of Secrets is only like 90% alive is because otherwise you, the reader, might just be thinking, well, why doesn't Harry just go give him a big hug?
Yeah, right.
You know,
why doesn't that work again, dude?
Why, worked on Quirrell. Why wouldn't it work on this? Because that to me feels like whatever Harry does by opening the locket feels like what you're seeing with Tom Riddle.
I feel like, I think if Tom Riddle had come fully back and Harry had touched his face, it would have been bad news for that.
Yes, would have been bad news bears.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that has to be the case because it's a huge deal for Tom Riddle in the graveyard when he can touch Harry.
Yes,
like physically, because it's like, I have now used your blood to return, which now means
I can touch you.
Boop.
Yeah, exactly.
And he
boops him right on the forehead there.
Right there on the forehead.
Hey, dude.
Wait, that's like one of those when I'm watching Goblet of Fire, though. I can like feel Harry's pain, even though it doesn't seem like it should hurt at all.
Right, yeah.
It's like, oh, man, he's touching the scar.
Yeah,
like,
ouch.
That has got to be excruciating pain.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't have a tremendous... I don't think I have like a that's satisfying answer.
Yeah, I don't have a super satisfying answer other than Quirrell is alive and the objects aren't, and the objects aren't bothered by him. And then Nagini does like wrap him up, and it's just I don't know if we get like confirmation about whether or not Harry's bear skin touches Nagini at any point. But it's, to me, if Harry did touch Nagini, it would have hurt her. And we just don't know if that ever happens.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's all I got.
That's a good point. Well, and to your original point as well, like when you go to the Sorcerer's Stone movie, it does seem like it's Harry that melts Quirrell with his own bare hands. But it seems like in the books, the description is much more like Dumbledore arrives in time to solve whatever that is.
Yeah.
To push Quirrell over the
pull
edge.
him off him or whatever.
Or something. Which may suggest that maybe Nagini was badly damaged during the battle in Godric's Hollow, but not enough to kill her.
Right.
Not enough to destroy
It's
her.
not like Harry touches Quirrell and like that's lights out for him. It's just too painful for him to keep touching him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why he doesn't just use his wand and immediately attack him.
It could have,
Still beyond me.
Well, it was book one. There was still lots left to write.
Yeah. Oh, that would have worked anyway. It still would have just bounced off again. Just Voldemort wouldn't have known that.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah, that's true.
Then he
He would have been
learned.
so mad.
Oh, so mad.
Again?
He's pretty mad anyway.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Okay, let's see. Next question is from Kristen, who says, we all know that Voldemort was going to spare Lily for Snape, and what happened as a result from that? What would have happened if Voldemort had gone in with the intention of killing Lily? Would the sacrifice still have been enough if she was destined to be killed anyway? Fantastic question.
I think it's a fantastic question, and I think it would have made a difference.
It definitely would have made a difference, and I think Harry just would have died.
Harry just would have died.
Harry just would have died.
I mean, and I think the key reason for that is that when Voldemort walks into the room, James is there, on the first floor of the home, and he says, Lily, take Harry and run.
Yeah.
And he's promptly killed.
Right.
But like you couldn't dispute the fact that what James is doing in that situation is attempting, maybe hopelessly, not even maybe, just James is hopelessly trying to defend them.
Yeah.
But he is still trying.
Yeah.
He is still saying, I will stay here, you guys run.
Right. This is the answer to why doesn't James's sacrifices count.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's
yes.
Because Lily didn't have to die. She was given the option to live and chooses to die.
Yes.
James not given that consideration. He was going down no matter what.
Right.
But this is like, it's like the prophecy is beginning to play out even whilst it is being said, because it is Snape who is overhearing it.
True.
It is like, and if it hadn't been Snape overhearing it, then Voldemort wouldn't have heard the prophecy. But because it was Snape overhearing it, he tells Voldemort, and Voldemort's like, gotta kill Lily. And he's like, wait, what? No.
Yes. Yeah. It's such you're right. I mean, it all feels complex except for the fact that the prophecy makes it not complex, because that's the whole point.
Right.
Every single player who is involved for a reason because of their role inside of it, and that is like what is causing the prophecy to fulfill itself.
Right.
But yeah, so no, it's a fantastic question. But yes, this is like the James clause is how I would answer that question. Is basically if James's sacrifice had worked, then it seems like then everything would have gone differently. And because James's sacrifice doesn't work, it means that if he had just walked in with the intention of killing Lily, then he would have just blasted her out of the way.
Right.
That would have been that, and he would have won.
Harry would have gone down.
Yep. Love conquers all.
Love conquers all. This is the thing. It's just like, even if he just didn't take Snape serious, he was like, just spare Lily for it. He was like, no, were you kidding? No.
Yeah, exactly. I am definitely not doing
Definitely not. What a dumb question.
This is my life's work.
Yeah.
Severus. I've been spending a long time waiting on this very moment.
Sorry you're crushing hard on this girl, but she's going down, man. Like,
I know.
That's it.
I know. Yeah. I mean, and it's even kind of surprising that he doesn't take that line of reasoning.
It is almost surprising,
because like it's an uncharacteristic like amount of respect that he would have for Snape. Maybe?
I know, because like in the later days, Snape is like his number 2, but like at this point he's not.
But like in the later days when Harry is describing the situation to Voldemort, like it seems like Voldemort is basically just saying like he desired her and that was all. Like, it was like a passing fancy type of situation.
That part is hilarious, because it's like later on Snape goes on to be his number 2, which means like Voldemort still doesn't realize why the sacrifice worked.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you're putting so much like trust into Severus Snape, who was the he was part of the reason like that you fell the first time, and like you're not giving that any credit. You don't realize that at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, in that way, it's like everything comes down to Snape.
Right.
He's at the center of the story.
Yeah. Yep. Well, there you go.
Crazy. Okay. Do we have any more?
2 masters. We have a couple more here. We have Baxter from Australia. It says, why did Riddle think he was the first person to find the Room of Requirement, especially if you take the bloody axe to be the one used on Nick? Yeah. So this is a great question. Harry's like looking around like I think Ron says like he thought he was the only one who found this place.
Right. I can't tell if this is something that like is supposed to be being set up by like the question that the Ravenclaw door knocker asks, like, where do vanished objects go? And it's almost sort of like the like, I don't know, even going back to like Hogwarts pre-modern plumbing. It's like, what did they do with all of the waste? It's like they just used a spell to vanish it away. It's like, where does it go?
It's
this room.
Right. It seems like the Room of Requirement, like its intent. I feel like Harry and Ron and Hermione, like in the DA, they're like finding a creative way to use that room, but that's not its intended purpose. I feel like, and this is just me conjecturing, but it just seems like it feels like the Room of Requirement's purpose in the castle is to like is like part of the it's like part of the plumbing of the castle.
Okay.
Almost like you got a school with this many people in it, a building of this size with this many magical people has like, it needs like a place for the stuff to go, for the rubble to go. It's like we see the house elves use it to like dump stuff,
yes,
and whatever. But it seems like if you're getting rid of stuff, like we just need a sort of like an infinite spot for it to go, like the inside of Hermione's bag or something. It's just like it's the school's way of dealing with excess. Yeah. And it's like this is just where the stuff goes. Like it can accommodate the needs of the castle,
right?
And it's like, but otherwise, then students find it and they kind of are just like hacking it and like making it do what they want.
Yeah, I don't hate that explanation either, because it's almost like the way I'm kind of thinking about it based on your description there, it's like a recycling bin on your computer.
Yeah.
Where it's like you could put any kind of files, no matter what file types they are, into the recycling bin and just keep stuffing it full of things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sort of like, where is it? It's like, it's in the recycling bin. It's gone.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, I could almost see a world where, like, inside of a magical property, especially where like secrecy is so important, it's almost like the castle needs, like, if you could imagine like a university, a college, a high school, elementary school, anything, and the amount of trash or waste or things that are going to be produced all the time that need to leave and go elsewhere.
Right.
Like, Hogwarts does not have that luxury.
Right.
So like every time a desk breaks, it's not like you can just go like throw it in the landfill.
Right, exactly.
Like,
it's like the laws of physics sort of still apply. It's like you can't just like delete stuff from existence.
Right.
I think that's even one of those like transfiguration, the Gamp's laws of transfiguration.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I think that's in there. It's like their version of physics or whatever. But it's like they can't just like literally make it disappear. It still has to go somewhere, like into non-being or whatever. But it's like for the school, that place of non-being, I think, is the room of requirement.
Right.
Like this is where it's going.
Yeah, and I mean, I think by non-being, it's like it's not gone forever. It's just this room has the magical capability to not be.
Right.
Like it like disproves.
It's like a vortex or something. It's like a vacuum.
Yeah, like a vacuum.
Yeah. It exists in a vacuum.
Right.
And you can access it from this door.
From this door.
Yeah.
Which can only magically appear if you do this very specific set of instructions.
Right.
Yeah. But no, otherwise I do think that's so yes. So the answer to the question isn't like Tom Riddle walking into the room for hidden objects and thinking, wow, look at all of these things that other students have brought here before. It would almost be like finding a way to enter the recycling bin.
Right.
It's
yes.
like, I have entered something that was supposed to be unenterable, but now that I'm here, it's the perfect place to hide something because there is just eons and eons of junk.
Right. So it's like he's discovering like the septic tank or something. It's like he's like, here's where all the crap goes.
Yeah.
I knew this existed. It had to exist because it has to go somewhere. You know? And it's like, I found it. And it's like, no one would ever just go visit the septic tank. But clearly all the stuff is here because somewhere has to exist for the stuff to go.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to hide my stuff here.
I'm gonna hide my really cool things.
Exactly.
Otherwise, yeah, it is really ridiculous. But you could imagine even like Percy or something, like fanged frisbees, I think, are flying around. Like I could see a world where Percy's just walking through the halls and he's like, yep, yoink, disappear. And it's like, the students looking at Percy like, well, where the heck did that go? And Percy's like, I have no idea.
No idea.
But it is gone now.
It seems like if you're like, this is the sort of thing, like maybe if you're like a wizard architect or something, like if you were studying wizarding architecture, it's the sort of thing where it's like, you could walk into Hogwarts and be like, now this place for sure has some sort of like vanishing room.
Oh yeah.
Like if you're like a big enough place, you're like this dwelling is large enough. It probably has a secret vanishing room that most people don't even think about.
Yeah, we need a vanishing room.
Yeah, we need like a vanishing room in here.
Yes.
And that's where the stuff will go. For like the Ministry of Magic, I bet it almost certainly has a room of requirement.
Almost certainly.
Yeah, that's probably not called that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. They just call it the trash heap.
Let's just call it the trash heap. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The incinerator.
Umbridge's office.
Nailed it.
Yeah, got it. All right, let's see. I think we have one more here from Nenya. Says, when you talked about Dumbledore's Deluminator in Book 1, I had a thought. Is it possible that Fawkes appearing in the Chamber of Secrets is connected to the power of the Deluminator, teleporting someone to the ones he/she really cares about? So did Fawkes appear because of Dumbledore's love/care for Harry?
I like it.
I do, because we have long considered... So our theory about the Deluminator, Lumos is a spell that turns the lights on, right?
Yes.
Boom. Cool spell. There is not and you use Nox to turn off Lumos.
Yes.
There is no spells in Harry Potter that just douse light, though.
Yes.
Nox turns off Lumos. It does not turn off other lights. You cannot just wave your wand and turn off lights. It seems like that spell must exist. And maybe it does, but if it does, we've never seen it.
Right.
But that's important because the Deluminator does exactly that. It turns off lights.
Yeah, and this is to the point where even when Moody is showing Harry number 12 Grimmauld Place for the first time, he has borrowed the Deluminator for the sake of making the street dark,
right,
while they reveal it to Harry. So
right.
it's like even Moody, who I think we could say is pleasantly or sufficiently versed in
pleasantly versed at magic.
Pleasantly versed at magic. Yes, he has pleasant amounts of magical ability. Even he needs to use it under these conditions.
Right, and like Malfoy coming out of the room of requirement has the Peruvian darkness powder. Boom, you need powder to make it dark. You can't just make it dark.
You can't, exactly.
Right. That's all important because the Deluminator can make it dark. So how does the Deluminator work? Well, if you watch Fantastic Beasts, there is one other thing in all of Harry Potter that turns off the lights, and it is an Obscurus.
An Obscurus.
And when they're flying down the streets, boom, lights are going off. Not because they're like breaking the power grid or something. It's just dousing them.
Yes.
So it seems like the Obscurus, and it kind of makes sense because that's like a repression of magic. It's like sucking in the magic. So this is like sucking in the light.
Sucking in the light.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, I mean, even that, like, just as you say those words, sounds like a metaphor for what an Obscurus is.
Yes, it does.
Like, you've sucked the light out of somebody.
Yes, you've sucked the light out of something. It makes it sound like light is magic or something.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit like that. But so we know that Dumbledore's sister had an Obscurus in her. So our thought has always been that the Deluminator possibly like contains a bit of Ariana's Obscurus or Credence's maybe, because we don't know how Fantastic Beasts ends. But he already has the Deluminator.
He has the Deluminator, and we know that. We already know that Ariana's been inflicted.
So probably Ariana.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing I know you have more to say, but the thing I would lob onto this as well is that like we have also long thought that like the Mirror of Erised could have been the forerunner to like the Resurrection Stone in a very similar capacity. Like you want your heart's truest desire, and so you create a window, a mirror, portal to that thing, but then it's a one-way mirror. Like then that's like where people can like waste away in front of it. And then when you create the Resurrection Stone, it's kind of a similar situation where it's like you can bring a version of them back, but not all the way. And even that version can be kind of deadly because it almost like entices you
to death.
To death. To join this person that you are otherwise, separated from as though by a veil.
As though by a veil.
And then the veil is of course the actual portal to death at the Department of Mysteries.
Right.
Where it's like it seems like if you walk through it, you are walking through into death.
Yes. All right, so let's see if we can tie it all together then. Let's see. So that is one power of the Deluminator, but the other thing it can do is maybe the more important function, which is it can summon you to someone after they say your name if like you love that person.
This is what happens with Ron after he leaves. He's got the Deluminator. Hermione says his name after all this time. From there, the little blue orb pops up, goes into the heart. Dumbledore, Ron is then able to teleport to where they are.
Yes, exactly. So, Ron's able to bring it there. So that would then seem like it's an alternate power of the Obscurus within the Deluminator. Right. So then Harry is in the chamber. He actually says Dumbledore's name. He
does.
He says Dumbledore's name. Yeah. That makes this a lot better.
Yeah, it does.
He does make that better.
Well.
And Fawkes can teleport, similar to how Ron would apparate, because he can do the fire thing.
Yep.
And we've thought before that maybe like the Fawkes is like could be Credence, who used to be an Obscurus. Or something, or like is absorbed. Maybe Credence is absorbed into the Phoenix that he got, and that's Fawkes. Again, we don't know how Fantastic Beasts ends. It seems like there's a lot of pieces that are floating, and there's some mixing and matching that's going to happen, would have happened. So let's see if Harry loves Dumbledore and says his name, and then maybe that should allow Fawkes to know exactly where Harry is. Oh, I like that. It does seem like it makes sense, and it does seem like then Fawkes would have the Credence Obscurus in him.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Potentially something of the sort. Yeah. Especially because there's like in Fantastic Beasts, I know we're like way in the weeds, but there are the two babies, and one of them is the one that like, is the returned Great Avenger with wings from the water or whatever, which is almost certainly the Phoenix. So it seems like it's the other baby that is the Phoenix itself. But then they coming together seem like you really have that like a Phoenix comes to a Dumbledore in need, but then you've also got a situation with Credence where it doesn't seem like his life as he's living it is sustainable, and something is going to happen in order to pull all the pieces together.
Right.
But no, I follow your logic. I think the whole way through almost, because if Fawkes did absorb the Obscurus in the same way that the Deluminator contains Ariana's Obscurus, then potentially you do have like this ingrained ability where if somebody who loves you says your name, that you can then find them and
right. And God, it even works out because Credence is truly a Dumbledore.
Credence is truly a Dumbledore. Yeah. So it would put those pieces together rather nicely. And I've even thought before, so in the exact same note as, like, if the second Peveril brother, Cadmus, is the one who creates the Resurrection Stone and potentially also the mirror, then I've often also said that I feel like when Dumbledore was creating the Deluminator, he created a device that should work the way that it works for Ron, but the people that he already loves are all dead.
Right.
And so it's like, if Ariana could say Dumbledore's name, then Dumbledore could go visit her. However, so it's like he is successful in creating what he is attempting to create. The problem is that the people who he wants to go to see, in the same way that Ron comes back to Harry and Hermione, are his family.
Right.
They're all dead.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Whoops.
All right. Well, that brings us, I think, to the end of our episode. These were all such great questions, and we barely scratched the surface of the number we got.
I know. Yeah.
So
we could keep going for sure.
We could keep going for sure, but I think we're going to halt it right there. Thank you guys so much. I hope this was a fun episode for you. I had a lot of fun answering these questions. Some of these are like real, like, how can I puzzle this out real quickly?
I know. Yeah. They're total head scratchers, but it really is very fun because it's like, this is something where I almost feel like we know the laws and rules and canon of this universe so well that like sometimes it's just coming up with the next question that needs solving. Is really like the challenge that you're at now. So it's like, so just a huge thank you to the community that tunes into and supports and listens to this show. Thank you to everybody who submitted your questions. I promise they will not be lost into the ether. We got a big old spreadsheet. We will find new ways to bring them to the surface. So don't feel like if we didn't get to your question today that it will never be heard. But yeah, I think that's everything. I think that is going to do it for our Q&A episode. The next episode will be Chapter 1 of Prisoner of Azkaban, coming at you live from Boston, where we will see you on Through the Griffin Door. But until then, that is going to do it for this episode of Through the Griffin Door. Today's episode was edited by Ethan Edgehill. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager, and the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.